The Panama Papers, the leak that exposed a legalized billion-dollar shell game. In April 2016, an anonymous whistleblower released 11.5 million confidential documents from the Panamanian law firm Mossack Fonseca to a group of investigative journalists. These documents, spanning nearly 40 years of financial records, revealed how the world's wealthiest individuals, corporations, and politicians legally shielded vast sums of money from taxation, oversight, and public scrutiny. The leak, known as the Panama Papers, was the biggest financial data breach in history, exposing a staggering $2.6 trillion hidden in offshore accounts. But what made the Panama Papers so shocking wasn't that tax havens existed. It was the sheer scale of it. This was not a few bad actors. It was a systemic, global operation where the rich and powerful exploited the legal loopholes designed to protect wealth, while everyday people paid the price. How the offshore system works. Legal, but unethical. The Panama Papers revealed how offshore tax havens function as legalized black holes for money. Mossack Fonseca specialized in setting up shell companies, offshore trusts, and anonymous bank accounts. Legal entities with no real employees, no office, and no business operations. These companies existed solely on paper, but were used to hold assets and disguise wealth. Here's how it worked. Step 1. Create a shell company. Wealthy individuals or corporations paid Mossack Fonseca to register an anonymous shell company in jurisdictions like the British Virgin Islands, Panama, or Seychelles. Step 2. Use nominee directors. The true owner's name would never appear on any documents. Instead, Mossack Fonseca provided nominee directors, people who legally acted as company officers but had no real control over the assets. Step 3. Open offshore bank accounts. Once the shell company existed, it could hold bank accounts in tax havens with extreme financial secrecy laws. Money could be deposited or moved without detection. Step 4. Disguise ownership of assets. These offshore accounts and companies were used to hide money, luxury properties, private jets, art collections, and even yachts. These techniques weren't necessarily illegal, which was what made them so powerful. The world's wealthiest individuals and corporations weren't breaking laws. They were exploiting the legal system itself to keep their money hidden from taxation and accountability. Who was exposed? The global fallout. The leaked documents implicated more than 140 politicians from over 50 countries, as well as billionaires, celebrities, athletes, and even crime syndicates. Politicians and world leaders. Iceland's Prime Minister Sigmundur David Gunnlaugsson was forced to resign after it was revealed he had secret offshore holdings. Pakistan's Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif was disqualified from office after his family's secret offshore accounts were exposed. Russian President Vladimir Putin's inner circle was linked to $2 billion in hidden offshore transactions. The King of Saudi Arabia, the President of Ukraine, and the former leaders of Argentina and Sudan were all named in the documents. Celebrities and athletes. Lionel Messi, the world-famous football star, was found to have offshore holdings used for tax avoidance. Jackie Chan, the beloved martial artist and actor, had at least 6 shell companies registered through Mossack Fonseca. Financial institutions and corporations, HSBC, UBS, and Deutsche Bank, helped clients launder money and avoid taxes through offshore accounts. FIFA officials were exposed for hiding millions in bribes. Drug cartels and organized crime. Mexican drug cartels, Russian mafia groups, and arms dealers all used offshore structures to move dirty money. A convicted fraudster used a Panama shell company to launder money stolen from a European pension fund. The sheer range of individuals and industries involved proved that offshore banking wasn't just a financial loophole. It was a global industry used by those in power to hoard wealth while avoiding consequences. The impact. Did anything change? The immediate fallout from the Panama Papers was explosive. Mass protests erupted in Iceland and Pakistan, leading to the resignation of key officials. Governments launched over 150 separate investigations into tax fraud and corruption. By 2019, at least $1.2 billion in unpaid taxes had been recovered worldwide. But despite the global outrage, the underlying offshore system didn't collapse. It simply evolved. Mossack Fonseca shut down in 2018, but new firms quickly took its place. In 2021, a follow-up leak known as the Pandora Papers revealed that more than 35 world leaders and 330 politicians still used offshore accounts. proving that the system never really went away. Why the system still exists, the loopholes that keep it alive. Despite increased regulation, the ultra-wealthy continue to exploit legal gaps to hide money offshore. Here's how they do it today. Trusts instead of shell companies. Newer offshore havens use trusts instead of companies, making it even harder to trace ownership. Hiding in U.S. states like Delaware and South Dakota. Ironically, the U.S. has become a top destination for offshore money, offering secretive financial structures inside the country. Cryptocurrency and digital assets. Bitcoin and other digital currencies provide a new frontier for financial secrecy. Real estate as a laundering tool. Luxury properties in London, New York, and Dubai are bought through offshore accounts, making it nearly impossible to track ownership. The bigger problem, a system rigged for the ultra-wealthy. At its core, the Panama Papers exposed a fundamental imbalance, one where the richest people on Earth play by a different set of rules than the average taxpayer. While regular people have their salaries taxed immediately, billionaires legally shift their money offshore, avoiding taxes altogether. While small businesses struggle to comply with local tax laws, multinational corporations park billions in offshore accounts, effectively paying nothing. While citizens are arrested for financial crimes, powerful elites who manipulate tax codes remain untouchable. This is not a failure of the law. This is how the system was designed, and unless governments fundamentally change how wealth is taxed and tracked, the offshore game will continue. Conclusion: the illusion of accountability. The Panama Papers revealed more than just tax evasion. They exposed a world where the richest individuals and corporations operate outside the reach of normal laws. Despite arrests, resignations, and investigations, the core mechanisms remain intact. The question is, do governments truly want to stop offshore tax evasion? Or is the real problem that too many powerful people benefit from keeping the system exactly as it is? Because the next financial scam wasn't hidden in offshore accounts. It was happening in plain sight, on Wall Street. The 2008 financial crisis, the largest legalized theft in history. It started with a lie so massive, it swallowed the world economy. For years, the financial industry told Americans that home ownership was for everyone, that mortgages were easy, low risk, and that housing prices would never fall. Banks, investment firms, and even the U.S. government pushed the American dream as if it were an unshakable truth. But what they didn't say, what they knew but refused to admit, was that the system was built on a foundation of fraud, greed, and deliberate deception. When it all collapsed in 2008, the damage was catastrophic. $19.2 trillion in household wealth was erased. 8.8 million Americans lost their jobs. 10 million families were evicted from their homes. And yet, the very banks that caused the crash were rewarded with bailouts. Because the biggest economic disaster in modern history wasn't an accident. It was a scam. And the worst part? It was 100% legal. How the scam worked. The subprime mortgage trap. At the heart of the 2008 crisis was a simple question. How do you make trillions of dollars off people who can't afford to pay their loans? Wall Street's answer? Sell them the loans anyway. Then sell the risk to someone else. Here's how it worked. Step 1. Give mortgages to people who couldn't afford them. Traditionally, banks only approved mortgages for people who had good credit and stable incomes. But in the early 2000s, banks realized they could make more money by handing out mortgages to everyone, even people with terrible credit and no steady job. These were called subprime mortgages, high-interest loans given to high-risk borrowers. The banks didn't care if they could pay them back. Why? Because they weren't planning to hold on to the loans. Step 2. Bundle the bad loans into investments. Once the banks handed out these risky mortgages, they bundled them together and sold them as mortgage-backed securities, MBS, complex financial products that were disguised as safe investments. Wall Street's logic? A few bad loans won't matter if they're mixed with thousands of other mortgages. It was like taking a few rotten apples, hiding them in a giant fruit basket, and selling the whole thing as premium produce. Step 3. Get ratings agencies to approve the scam banks paid credit rating agencies, like Moody's, Fitch, and Standard & Poor's, to stamp these toxic investments as AAA rated, the highest rating possible. In reality, these securities were time bombs waiting to explode, but as long as banks could sell them before they went bad, they didn't care. Step 4. Sell the risk to investors. then bet against them. Pension funds, insurance companies, and even governments bought these 8AA-rated securities, believing they were safe. Meanwhile, the very banks that sold them secretly bet against their own products. That's right. Banks like Goldman Sachs knew the mortgage market was going to crash, so they used a loophole called credit default swaps, CDS, to bet that their own customers' investments would fail. When the market collapsed, these banks made billions. Investors lost everything. And homeowners? They were left with foreclosures, bankruptcies, and financial ruin. The collapse. When the scam became unstoppable. By 2007, the cracks were beginning to show. Homeowners started defaulting on their mortgages at record rates. The housing market stalled. Banks stopped trusting each other. The entire financial system, built on a mountain of fake wealth, started crumbling. Then, in September 2008, Lehman Brothers collapsed, one of the largest investment banks in the world. Panic spread. Stock markets crashed worldwide. The global economy went into freefall. And then, the final betrayal. The bailout. Rewarding the criminals. With the financial system on the brink of collapse, the U.S. government had a choice. Let the banks fail and hold them accountable. Bail them out, using taxpayer money. They chose the second option. Congress passed the $700 billion Troubled Asset Relief Program, TARP, a massive government bailout that handed Wall Street a blank check to save itself. The result? Banks that had caused the crisis were bailed out. CEOs kept their bonuses. Not a single major executive went to jail. Meanwhile, millions of Americans lost everything. Who paid the price? The real victims of the 2008 financial crisis weren't the banks. They were homeowners who were tricked into taking bad loans and then left to rot when the market crashed, workers who lost their jobs when the economy collapsed, taxpayers who footed the bill for Wall Street's reckless gambling. And the worst part? The system never changed. Why it could happen again. The financial crisis was supposed to be a wake-up call, but instead of reforming the system, Wall Street found new ways to gamble. Here's why we're still vulnerable. Banks are bigger than ever. The same too-big-to-fail institutions are even larger than they were in 2008. The same risky financial products exist. Mortgage-backed securities, credit default swaps, and derivatives are still being traded today. The government didn't fix the root cause. Regulations were watered down, and Wall Street continued business as usual. There are even bigger bubbles today. Student loans, corporate debt, and real estate speculation are all red flags for another crash. So the real question isn't if another financial crisis will happen. It's when. The final insult. No one went to jail. In any other industry, committing fraud on this scale would lead to mass arrests. But in finance, crime pays. Instead of facing consequences, the same executives who caused the collapse kept their jobs, got bonuses, and walked away richer than ever. Lehman Brothers collapsed, but its CEO, Richard Fuld, made $500 million before it happened. Wells Fargo defrauded millions, but its executives retired with golden parachutes. Not a single major bank CEO was convicted for their role in the crisis. Why? Because the financial industry doesn't just break the law, it writes the law. Conclusion: the biggest legal scam of all time. The 2008 financial crisis wasn't just a disaster, it was a heist, a perfectly legal transfer of wealth from the middle class to the ultra-rich. A scam where the banks gambled with people's homes, the government let them do it. And when it all collapsed, regular people paid the price. Because in modern finance, the rich never truly lose. They just move the goalposts, rewrite the rules, and make sure that when the system burns, you are the one left in the ashes. Wells Fargo's fake accounts. Scandal. When a bank steals from its own customers. Imagine waking up one morning, checking your bank statement, and realizing you have an account you never opened, a credit card you never signed up for, a loan in your name, draining your credit score, wrecking your financial future. Now, imagine this happening to millions of people. This isn't some underground identity theft ring. It wasn't a hacker, a scammer, or a con artist. It was their own bank. Wells Fargo, one of the biggest and most trusted banks in America, wasn't just stealing money. It was fabricating accounts, charging hidden fees, and wrecking the lives of ordinary people. And the worst part? It was 100% legal. Until they got caught. But before we expose how this happened, let's start with the real question. How does a bank pull off a scam this big for years without getting stopped? The Wells Fargo business model: pressure, quotas, and fraud. To understand this scandal, You need to understand banking quotas. Banks don't just make money from customers opening accounts. They make money by cross-selling, convincing you to open more products, take out more loans, sign up for more credit cards. Every additional account means more fees, more interest payments, and more money flowing into the bank. At Wells Fargo, this wasn't just encouraged, it was required. Starting in the early 2000s, employees were pressured to meet impossible sales targets. They weren't just expected to sign up new customers. They were expected to sell every customer at least 8 banking products. They even had a name for it. The 8 is great strategy. But there was a problem. Customers didn't need that many products. Most people don't need 8 different accounts at the same bank. So what did Wells Fargo do? They created fake accounts. Employees, desperate to keep their jobs, started opening accounts without telling customers. They forged signatures. They created fake email addresses. They enrolled people in services without their consent. They moved money between accounts to meet sales goals, stealing from customers without them noticing. This wasn't a few rogue employees. This was happening across the entire company. An estimated 3.5 million fake accounts were created. And for years, no one stopped it. How did Wells Fargo get away with it for so long? The scam was blindingly obvious if you looked for it. Customers complained for years about accounts they never opened, fees they never authorized, and credit score damage they never caused. But Wells Fargo buried the complaints. They told customers it was a misunderstanding. They fired employees who spoke up. They created fake investigations to make it look like they were solving the problem. And because they were one of the biggest banks in the country, regulators hesitated to take action. Until 2016. That's when the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, CFPB, finally launched an investigation. The truth came out. 3.5 million fake accounts had been created. Customers had been charged millions in fees for accounts they never asked for. Over 500,000 customers were signed up for credit cards without consent. At least 14,000 people had their credit scores ruined by fake loans they never took out. The result? A record-breaking $185 million fine. Sounds like justice, right? Not even close. The price of fraud, a slap on the wrist. $185 million sounds like a lot until you realize that Wells Fargo makes billions every year. In fact, in 2016, the same year they were fined, Wells Fargo made $22 billion in revenue. They could pay the fine in a single day of profits. So, what happened to the executives who oversaw this fraud? Did they go to jail? Did they lose their bonuses? Not really. Did they even admit wrongdoing? Barely. Instead, Wells Fargo fired 5,300 low-level employees, the same workers who were forced into the scheme by impossible quotas. The CEO, John Stumpf, retired with a $130 million payout. The executives blamed the culture, but kept their wealth. Wells Fargo acted like the crisis was over. The public moved on. The stock price rebounded, and then they did it again. The scandal didn't stop. It got worse. In the years following the initial exposure, Wells Fargo was caught running even more scams. In 2018, they were fined $1 billion for charging hundreds of thousands of people for car insurance they never needed. In 2019, they were forced to pay $3 billion after admitting that the fake account scandal had gone back to at least 2002. In 2022, they were fined another $3.7 billion for illegally seizing homes, charging illegal fees, and mismanaging customer accounts. At this point, the fines added up to over $5 billion, and still, no one went to jail. Wells Fargo's stock price continued to rise, its executives continued to profit, and millions of customers continued to suffer. Because in the world of corporate banking, crime pays. How banks use legal loopholes to get away with fraud. Wells Fargo's fake accounts weren't just a failure of ethics. They were a demonstration of how the financial system protects itself. Here's why they got away with it. Too big to fail. Wells Fargo is one of the biggest banks in America. If the government shut it down, the economy could collapse. So instead, they fined them, but let them continue. No real punishment for executives. If a small business owner did this, they'd go to prison for fraud. But when bank executives oversee a scam, they get golden parachutes. Fines are just a cost of doing business. $1 billion fine sounds big, until you realize Wells Fargo makes that much in a few months. To them, Fines are just another business expense. Regulators are always playing catch-up. By the time fraud is uncovered, the damage is already done. The money is gone. The customers are wrecked. And the bank? It just moves on to the next scam. This is why financial fraud is never truly stopped. Because when banks know they can steal and keep the money, why would they ever stop? The real lesson of Wells Fargo. The system is rigged. The Wells Fargo scandal proves one thing. Banks don't get punished the way people do. If you steal $1,000, you go to jail. If a bank steals $1 billion, they pay a fine and keep going. The entire financial system is built to protect itself. And no matter how many people get robbed, no matter how many homes get foreclosed, no matter how many lives are ruined, the banks still win. So here's the real question. If even getting caught doesn't stop them, what will? Because the next scam on our list was so big, it nearly collapsed the entire global economy. Big Pharma's price inflation. How life-saving drugs became a billion-dollar racket. Imagine standing at the pharmacy counter, holding a prescription for a life-saving medication. You need it to survive. Maybe it's for you. Maybe for your child. Maybe for an elderly parent. You expect the price to be high, but when the pharmacist rings it up, it's $600. You check again. Your insurance barely covers it. Without this drug, your health deteriorates. Without this drug, you could die. So you do what millions of Americans do every year. You swipe your credit card, drain your savings, take out a loan because you don't have a choice. And the worst part? The same exact drug costs $20 in Canada, $5 in India, and in some cases, it costs mere cents to make. So why is it hundreds, thousands, even millions of dollars in the US? Because Big Pharma controls the price. And what's stopping them from charging whatever they want? Absolutely nothing. The rigged system that lets pharma companies charge any price they want. In most industries, prices are based on supply and demand. If a company overcharges, a competitor can step in, offer the same product for less, and force prices down. But pharmaceuticals? They play by different rules. Monopolies on medicine. When a company patents a drug, they own the exclusive right to sell it for 20 years. No competition, no alternatives, no cheaper options. Pay to delay schemes. When that patent is about to expire, Big Pharma pays generic drug makers to stay out of the market. The result? High prices stay locked in. Price gouging. Without limits. The US government does not regulate drug prices. If a company wants to raise the cost by 1,000% overnight, they can. Insurance companies play along. Instead of negotiating lower prices, insurers pass sky-high costs onto customers. That's why Americans pay the highest premiums and the highest drug prices in the world. This isn't supply and demand. This isn't capitalism. This is legalized extortion. The most infamous cases of drug price manipulation, pharmaceutical price inflation, isn't just a theory. It's been happening for decades. And when you look at the numbers, it's almost unbelievable. 1. The EpiPen scandal. Life or death at a 500% markup. The EpiPen is a simple auto-injector filled with epinephrine, a drug that costs less than $1 to produce. It's used to stop deadly allergic reactions. In 2007, an EpiPen cost about $50 per pack. By 2016, the price had jumped to $600. What changed? Nothing. The ingredients didn't get more expensive. The production didn't get more complex. But Mylan Pharmaceuticals had a monopoly on the device. So they jacked up the price. Parents scrambled to afford the drug that could save their child's life. Some started rationing doses, using expired pens, or risking going without. Meanwhile, Mylan's CEO took home $98 million in a single year. Under public pressure, they released a cheaper generic for $300. $300 for a drug that costs $1 to make. But this was just the beginning. 2. Martin Shkreli and the 5,000% price hike. In 2015, Martin Shkreli, a hedge fund manager turned pharma executive, bought the rights to a drug called Daraprim. Daraprim is used to treat life-threatening infections in people with weakened immune systems, HIV patients, cancer patients, transplant recipients. Overnight, he raised the price from $13.50 to $750 per pill. That's a 5,000% increase for a drug that had been around since the 1950s. Shkreli's response? He mocked the public. He called the price hike a great business decision. He dared anyone to stop him. And the law? It couldn't do anything. Shkreli was eventually sent to prison, but not for price gouging. He was convicted of securities fraud, the drug price. It never went down. 3. Insulin, a drug that should be free but costs hundreds. Insulin isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. Millions of diabetics rely on it every single day to survive. In 1996, a vial of insulin cost about $21. Today, the same vial costs over $300. Why? Because three companies, Eli Lilly, Novo Nordisk, and Sanofi, own the entire insulin market. They slowly increase the price together, raising it year after year. The result? 1 in 4 diabetics in the US ration their insulin, risking their lives. Some travel to Canada, where the same insulin costs $30. Others die because they simply can't afford it. In 2023, after decades of public outcry, Eli Lilly finally announced it would cap insulin prices at $35. But let's be clear, they weren't forced to do this. They weren't punished. They just decided to stop gouging people after making billions. And insulin is just one example. Why doesn't the government stop this? In most countries, drug prices are regulated. The government negotiates prices. They put limits on how much companies can charge. But in the US, pharmaceutical companies spend millions lobbying politicians. They fund election campaigns. They control the system. Congress has debated drug price reform for decades. But every time a bill comes up, pharma giants spend millions to kill it. The result? Americans pay 2 to 10 times more for the same medications as people in other countries. Medical debt is the leading cause of bankruptcy in the US. People die not because medicine doesn't exist, but because they can't afford it. And here's the darkest part. These aren't rare cases. They aren't one-time scandals. This is how the system is designed to work. The real lesson. Healthcare isn't about health. It's about profits. Big Pharma doesn't care about saving lives. They care about maximizing revenue. And when the government lets them set any price they want, they always choose the highest one people can pay before they die. They create monopolies. They kill competition. They buy politicians. And when public outrage threatens their business, they pretend to lower prices, just enough to silence the criticism. Because in their eyes, medicine isn't a right. It's a product. And if you can't afford it, that's your problem. But the next scam on our list, it isn't about medicine. It's about one of the most essential resources on Earth, water. Nestlé and the water trade, turning a human right into a billion-dollar business. Imagine you're standing in front of a vending machine. You're thirsty. You grab a bottle of water, swipe your card, and walk away. It's only $1 or $2. Nothing unusual. But what if I told you that bottle of water was stolen, not from a store, not from a warehouse, but from the earth itself? Because the biggest bottled water companies, like Nestlé, Coca-Cola, and Pepsi, don't pay for the water they sell. They take it for almost nothing from public sources, package it, and sell it back to you for a 4,000% markup. This isn't a conspiracy. It's not even illegal. It's one of the greatest legal scams in history. Let's break it down. How Nestlé turned free water into a multi-billion-dollar industry. Water is essential. It's a basic human need. But big corporations see it as a product. Companies like Nestlé don't produce water. They don't create it. They don't refine it. They find natural water sources, lakes, rivers, underground wells, and extract as much as they can for pennies. Nestlé pays as little as $200 a year to pump millions of gallons of water in some places. Then, they bottle it and sell it for billions. No taxes, no oversight, no limits. In some areas, they deplete local water supplies, leaving communities struggling with shortages, just so they can sell it back to them. And it gets worse. How Nestlé destroys water access for the poor. In many parts of the world, clean water is scarce. Over 2.2 billion people lack access to safe drinking water. In some countries, water is more expensive than food. And in places where water should be free, corporations are making sure it's not. Case study: Michigan's water crisis. Michigan is home to one of the world's largest freshwater supplies, the Great Lakes. But while residents of Flint and Detroit were struggling with water shortages and lead contamination, Nestlé was pumping millions of gallons for free. Flint residents were poisoned by lead, paying hundreds of dollars a month for toxic water. Nestlé paid $200 a year to take 210 million gallons of clean water from Michigan wells and sell it for profit. The people were thirsty. Nestlé had the clean water. But instead of helping, they sold it back to the same communities that were suffering. And this isn't just in Michigan. In Pakistan, Nestlé pumps water from the ground, while local communities struggle with droughts. In Ethiopia, bottled water companies extract from a freshwater source, while citizens travel miles for drinking water. In California, during a historic drought, Nestlé continued bottling millions of gallons a day, ignoring state conservation efforts. This is not supply and demand. It's corporate greed, and governments let them do it. How laws allow corporations to own water forever, the biggest scam. Once a company claims a water source, they own it indefinitely. Water rights laws allow companies to lease water from public lands for decades, sometimes permanently. Many states don't regulate water extraction at all, and when governments try to stop them, they sue and usually win. Nestlé's argument, water is not a human right, it's a commodity. That's not a conspiracy theory. It's a direct quote from Nestlé's former CEO, Peter Brabeck. They don't just believe water should be sold, they believe it should be owned. The water scarcity scam, a manufactured crisis. You've probably heard it before. There's not enough water to go around. Water shortages are getting worse. We need to conserve. And yes, water shortages are real, but they aren't caused by individual people taking long showers. They're caused by corporations draining natural water sources for profit. Agriculture uses 70% of the world's fresh water supply. Bottling plants waste millions of gallons during production. Pollution from industries ruins natural water sources, forcing communities to rely on bottled water. And the best part, they blame you for the crisis. They tell you to stop using plastic straws, while they dump millions of tons of plastic into the ocean. They tell you to take shorter showers, while they pump unlimited water out of the ground. They tell you to recycle, while they produce millions of single-use plastic bottles every year. Because when there's a water shortage, they don't suffer, they profit. How governments are letting this happen. No price regulation. Water companies set their own prices. There's no oversight, no usage limits. Corporations can drain aquifers indefinitely, even during droughts. No accountability. Nestlé, Coca-Cola, and Pepsi lobby lawmakers to protect their access to water. And every time someone suggests regulating them, they threaten legal action. When California tried to restrict Nestlé's water use during a drought, Nestlé fought back and won. When small towns tried to stop bottling plants from opening, the companies sued the communities. When activists pushed for water to be declared a human right, corporate lobbyists shut them down. Because in the eyes of these corporations, water isn't for drinking. It's for selling. The final insult, you're paying for their water twice. Not only are corporations stealing public water, they're making you pay for it in more ways than one. You pay for public water systems through taxes. They extract that water for free. They bottle it and sell it back to you for profit. And when a water crisis hits, they donate a few cases of water as charity, while making billions. It's the ultimate scam. What's the solution? Make water a legally protected human right. Ban corporations from privatizing natural water sources. Set price limits on bottled water. Hold companies accountable for depleting local water supplies. Because access to clean water shouldn't depend on how much money you have. It should be a right. But if you think water is the only thing corporations have turned into a rigged market, think again. Because next up, one of the greatest scams of all time. How giant corporations avoid paying taxes legally. Amazon's tax avoidance. How the world's richest company pays almost nothing. Imagine this. You run a small business. You work hard, make a profit, and at the end of the year, you pay taxes. A lot of taxes. Now imagine Amazon, a trillion-dollar company, makes hundreds of billions in revenue. And yet, at the end of the year, they pay almost nothing. How is that possible? How can the most profitable companies in the world legally avoid paying taxes, while everyday people and small businesses pay their full share? Because this isn't a mistake. It's a system designed to let them win, and this is how they do it. Step 1. Manipulating profits. On paper, Amazon barely makes money. Amazon reported over $469 billion in revenue in 2021. That's more than most countries. So, how much did they pay in federal income tax? Just 6% of their profits, far below the 21% corporate tax rate. And in 2018 and 2019, they paid zero in federal taxes. That's right, $0. How? By making their profits disappear. Here's the trick. Amazon reinvests billions into expansion, infrastructure, and technology. On paper, these are expenses, which reduce their taxable income. The more they spend, the less profit they report. Think about it like this. Imagine you make $100,000 a year, but before taxes, you reinvest most of it on your house, your car, and your job. If you report only $10,000 as actual income, your taxes shrink dramatically. Now multiply that trick by hundreds of billions, and you have Amazon's tax strategy. But this is just the start. Step 2. Tax credits. The government pays Amazon instead of the other way around. Not only does Amazon avoid taxes, sometimes they even get paid by the government. In 2018, Amazon reported $11.2 billion in profit. Instead of paying taxes, they got a $129 million tax refund. How? Corporate tax credits. Amazon spends billions on research and development. Instead of taxing them, the US government rewards them with tax breaks. The more they innovate, the less they pay. It's a legal loophole designed to incentivize business growth. But when one of the biggest, most profitable companies in history keeps getting rewarded for being rich, you have to ask, who is this system really built for? Step 3. Hiding money in tax havens. The offshore loophole, Amazon's biggest trick? They move profits to countries with little or no tax. In 2021, Amazon's European division made $55 billion in revenue. Their tax bill? $0. In fact, they got a $1.2 billion tax credit. Where did the money go? Ireland, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands. These countries have ultra-low corporate tax rates. So Amazon shifts money there. Less profit reported in the US, more money protected overseas. It's not illegal. It's just rigged. Step 4. Stock-based compensation. Paying employees with no taxes. Amazon doesn't just manipulate taxes on paper. They also pay employees in stock instead of cash. Here's why. Salaries are taxed. Stock options, they're taxed way less. By using stock-based compensation, Amazon saves billions in payroll taxes, gets tax deductions for it, avoids paying Social Security and Medicare taxes on a huge portion of employee pay. Meanwhile, if you work a normal job, you pay full payroll taxes on every dollar you earn. For Amazon, their wealth grows tax-free. For you, your paycheck shrinks every month. Step 5. Lobbying to keep the system rigged. You might wonder, why doesn't the government stop this? Because Amazon and other corporations spend millions lobbying lawmakers to keep these loopholes open. Jeff Bezos personally lobbied Congress to maintain low corporate tax rates. Amazon has spent over $100 million on lobbying efforts in the past decade. They fund think tanks and economic reports that argue why taxing the rich is bad for growth. And politicians listen. Why? Because many of them own Amazon stock. Many of them get campaign donations from Amazon. And some even join Amazon's board after leaving office. It's a perfect cycle of wealth, influence, and protection. Because when you're this rich, you don't just follow the law, you help write it. Who pays for Amazon's tax avoidance? When Amazon doesn't pay its fair share, who covers the difference? Small businesses. They can't afford offshore tax havens. Workers. Who pay full taxes on every paycheck? Middle-class Americans. Who can't hide money in Luxembourg? Amazon made over $33 billion in profit in 2021. If they had paid the full 21% corporate tax rate, that would be $7 billion in tax revenue. Enough to fund free healthcare for millions of people, infrastructure, education, or social programs, lowering the tax burden on everyday citizens. Instead, they paid close to nothing, and they're not alone. Google, Apple, Facebook, Microsoft, Starbucks, all use the same loopholes, all make billions in profit, all pay far less than they should. And the worst part? They convince everyday people that raising taxes on corporations will hurt the economy. Meanwhile, they drain the system and leave the rest of us paying the bill. This isn't capitalism. This is corporate welfare. How do we fix it? Close tax loopholes, so companies can't hide profits. Enforce a global minimum tax, so corporations can't dodge taxes by moving money overseas. End stock-based compensation tax breaks, so companies can't avoid payroll taxes. Punish corporate lobbying, so billion-dollar businesses can't buy the government. But here's the truth. These loopholes exist because they were designed to. They're not mistakes. They're the system working exactly as intended. And if you think Amazon's tax scam is bad, wait until you see what's coming next. Because next up, how the ticket industry became one of the biggest legal scams in history. The Ticketmaster Monopoly, how one company dominates live entertainment. Imagine this. Your favorite band announces a reunion tour after a decade-long hiatus. You're ecstatic, ready to purchase tickets the moment they go on sale. You log into Ticketmaster, the primary ticketing platform, only to find the website crashing repeatedly. When you finally get through, tickets are either sold out or priced exorbitantly high due to dynamic pricing. Frustrated, you turn to secondary markets, where prices have skyrocketed even further. This scenario has become all too common for concertgoers worldwide. At the heart of this issue lies Ticketmaster, a company that has, over the years, established a near monopoly over the live entertainment ticketing industry. This dominance has led to numerous controversies, legal battles, and widespread dissatisfaction among fans and artists alike. The genesis of Ticketmaster's dominance, founded in 1976 by Peter Gadwa, Albert Leffler, and Gordon Gunn III, Ticketmaster began as a modest operation in Phoenix, Arizona, licensing computer programs and selling hardware for ticketing systems. Under the leadership of CEO Fred Rosen, the company relocated to Los Angeles to be closer to the heart of the entertainment industry. This strategic move allowed Ticketmaster to forge exclusive contracts with major venues, effectively sidelining competitors and consolidating its market position. A pivotal moment came in 1991, when Ticketmaster acquired its main competitor, Ticketron. This acquisition solidified Ticketmaster's dominance, making it the largest ticketing service provider in the U.S. The company's strategy was clear: secure exclusive agreements with venues, ensuring that all ticket sales funneled through their platform. This approach not only marginalized competitors, but also gave Ticketmaster significant control over service fees and pricing structures. The Live Nation merger, a monopoly in the making. In 2009, Ticketmaster announced a merger with Live Nation, the world's leading concert promoter and venue operator. This merger, finalized in 2010, led to the formation of Live Nation Entertainment, a behemoth that controlled a vast swath of the live entertainment ecosystem, from artist management and venue ownership to ticket sales. The merger raised immediate antitrust concerns. Critics argued that combining the largest ticketing company with the largest concert promoter would stifle competition, leading to higher prices and reduced choices for consumers. Despite these concerns, the U.S. Department of Justice approved the merger under a consent decree. This decree aimed to prevent anti-competitive practices by prohibiting Live Nation from retaliating against venues that chose to work with competing ticketing services. However, enforcement of these provisions has been a contentious issue, with allegations that Live Nation Ticketmaster has repeatedly violated the terms. Controversial practices, dynamic pricing, and service fees. One of the most contentious practices employed by Ticketmaster is dynamic pricing. This strategy adjusts ticket prices in real time based on demand, similar to how airlines price flights. While proponents argue that dynamic pricing allows artists to capture more of the market value, critics contend that it leads to exorbitant prices, making live events accessible primarily to wealthier fans. For instance, during the sale of tickets for Bruce Springsteen's 2023 tour, fans were shocked to find some tickets priced at $4,000 to $5,000 due to dynamic pricing. This led to public outcry and debates about the fairness of such practices. In addition to dynamic pricing, Ticketmaster has been criticized for its opaque and often excessive service fees. Consumers frequently find that the final cost of tickets includes fees that significantly increase the total price, with little transparency about what these fees entail. This lack of clarity has fueled frustration and allegations of price gouging. High-profile disputes, artists and fans. Pushback over the years, several high-profile artists have clashed with Ticketmaster over its business practices. In 1994, the rock band Pearl Jam filed a complaint with the U.S. Department of Justice, accusing Ticketmaster of monopolistic practices and excessive service charges. The band attempted to organize a tour, avoiding Ticketmaster venues, but faced significant logistical challenges, highlighting the company's pervasive influence in the industry. More recently, in 2022, Taylor Swift's Eras Tour became a flashpoint for criticism. The overwhelming demand for tickets led to website crashes, prolonged wait times, and a significant number of fans unable to secure tickets. Tickets quickly appeared on secondary markets at inflated prices, leading to public outrage and calls for regulatory intervention. The incident drew attention from lawmakers, with some advocating for the breakup of Live Nation Entertainment to restore competition in the ticketing industry. Legal challenges and regulatory scrutiny. Ticketmaster's business practices have not only drawn ire from consumers and artists, but have also attracted legal challenges and regulatory scrutiny. In May 2024, the U.S. Department of Justice, along with 29 states and the District of Columbia, filed an antitrust lawsuit against Live Nation Entertainment. The lawsuit alleges that the company has engaged in anti-competitive practices, leveraging its dominant position to suppress competition and harm consumers. The plaintiffs seek to unwind the merger between Live Nation and Ticketmaster, aiming to restore competition in the live events market. This legal action represents one of the most significant challenges to Ticketmaster's dominance in years. If successful, it could lead to a restructuring of the live entertainment industry, providing more choices and potentially fairer prices for consumers. The global impact: international investigations and reforms. Ticketmaster's influence and the controversies surrounding its practices are not confined to the United States. Internationally, the company has faced investigations and calls for reform. In the United Kingdom, the Competition and Markets Authority, CMA, launched an investigation into Ticketmaster's practices following complaints about the pricing and availability of tickets for high-demand events, such as the Oasis reunion tour. Fans reported waiting for hours in digital queues, only to be met with inflated prices due to dynamic pricing once they could purchase tickets. The CMA's investigation aims to determine whether Ticketmaster's practices constitute unfair commercial behavior and if they violate consumer protection laws. Similarly, the European Commission has shown interest in examining Ticketmaster's market practices, especially concerning dynamic pricing and its impact on consumers across member countries. These international inquiries highlight the widespread nature of the issues associated with Ticketmaster's business model. Data breaches and consumer trust. Beyond pricing and monopolistic practices, Ticketmaster has also grappled with issues related to data security. In May 2024, the company confirmed a significant data breach, with approximately 1.3 terabytes of customer data compromised. This breach potentially affected over 500 million customers, making it one of the largest digital security incidents in recent history. The breach, attributed to the hacker group Shiny Hunters, exposed sensitive customer information, including financial data. This incident has raised serious concerns about Ticketmaster's data protection measures and has led to class action lawsuits from affected consumers. The company's handling of the breach and its aftermath will likely influence public perception and trust in its services moving forward. The path forward: potential reforms and industry changes. Breaking up Live Nation Entertainment. Separating Ticketmaster from Live Nation could reduce the company's ability to leverage its dominance across multiple facets of the live entertainment industry. This would create more competition, allowing other ticketing platforms to negotiate fairer deals with venues and artists. Regulating dynamic pricing. Governments could impose restrictions on dynamic pricing models, ensuring that ticket prices remain within reasonable limits, and that artists, not just corporations, benefit from demand-driven pricing. Transparent fee structures. New regulations could force Ticketmaster and other ticketing platforms to display the full ticket price upfront, including all fees. This would eliminate the frustration of hidden costs and allow consumers to make more informed purchasing decisions. Ending exclusive venue contracts. Some lawmakers have proposed banning exclusive agreements between Ticketmaster and venues, which prevent competition from emerging. Without these contracts, alternative ticketing services could offer more competitive pricing and lower service fees. While these proposed changes could level the playing field, the question remains, will they actually happen? Or is Ticketmaster so deeply embedded in the live entertainment ecosystem that breaking its grip is impossible? The deeper issue: how Ticketmaster exploits fandom beyond the legal battles and regulatory scrutiny. Ticketmaster's greatest advantage is its ability to exploit fandom itself. Concerts are not just entertainment. They are once-in-a-lifetime experiences. Fans are emotionally invested, willing to pay almost any price to see their favorite artists live. Ticketmaster understands this, and it monetizes that desperation, creating artificial scarcity. By controlling the ticketing system, Ticketmaster can manipulate availability, making fans believe tickets are selling out faster than they really are. This fuels panic buying and higher resale prices, encouraging secondary market price inflation. Through its own resale platform, Ticketmaster Verified Resale, the company benefits from inflated resale prices by taking additional fees on tickets that were already purchased through its own system. Leveraging presale and VIP pricing, the company creates multi-tiered pricing structures, offering early access tickets at inflated prices, knowing that fans will pay a premium for exclusivity. The convenience fee. Lie. Many Ticketmaster fees are labeled as convenience fees or service fees, despite being arbitrary surcharges that do not reflect actual costs. These fees generate billions in pure profit. Fans don't have a choice. They either pay up or miss out. And here's the real problem. Even if Ticketmaster lost the lawsuit and was forced to change its practices, another company would likely take its place and do the same thing. Because the true issue isn't just Ticketmaster, it's the corporatization of live entertainment itself. The bigger picture, the death of affordable live events. Ticketmaster's dominance is part of a broader trend where live entertainment is becoming a luxury good. Festivals are pricing out average fans. Once accessible music festivals like Coachella and Lollapalooza now charge thousands for premium experiences, pushing general admission attendees further from the stage while reserving the best spots for VIPs. Sports tickets are becoming unaffordable. Ticket prices for major events like the Super Bowl or NBA Finals are so high that the average fan is priced out, leaving corporations and wealthy buyers to dominate the audience. The death of the $20 concert ticket. Gone are the days of affordable concerts. Even smaller shows now carry hefty fees, making it nearly impossible for younger or lower-income fans to experience live music. The live event industry is becoming a pay-to-play system, where only those with deep pockets get access to the best experiences, and companies like Ticketmaster are leading the charge in making that a reality. The question is there any way back? The future of ticketing, a market ready for disruption. Despite Ticketmaster's stranglehold on the industry, there are signs that change may be coming. Blockchain ticketing. New companies are exploring blockchain-based ticketing systems that could eliminate scalping and secondary market gouging by tying tickets to a single digital identity. This could stop resellers from hoarding tickets and reselling them at exorbitant prices. Decentralized ticket marketplaces. Startups are experimenting with peer-to-peer ticket exchanges that cut out corporate middlemen entirely, reducing fees and giving fans more control over pricing. Artist direct ticket sales. Some artists, such as Nine Inch Nails and Radiohead, have attempted to bypass Ticketmaster by selling directly to fans. While this works for some independent artists, larger acts are still dependent on Ticketmaster's massive infrastructure. Government intervention. If the current antitrust lawsuit succeeds, it could force Ticketmaster to break apart, creating a more competitive market where fans and artists have better options. The future is uncertain, but one thing is clear: fans are fed up. Artists are speaking out. Regulators are finally paying attention. Will anything actually change? Or is Ticketmaster too powerful to be stopped? Because if you think this scam is bad, wait until you see how buying something that looks perfect on the outside, only to find out it's completely broken. And worse, there's no way to return it. The used car lemon loophole. How dealers sell you a broken dream. Imagine this. You finally saved enough money to buy a car. It's nothing fancy, just something reliable to get you to work. The dealership salesman flashes a reassuring smile. This car runs perfectly. Low mileage, no accidents. Certified pre-owned. You won't find a better deal. You sign the papers. You drive off the lot, feeling like you made a smart financial move. Then, 2 weeks later, the check engine light flickers on. The transmission starts slipping. The brakes feel off. The steering locks up at random moments. You take it to a mechanic only to hear the words no car owner ever wants to hear. This thing's a lemon. You go back to the dealership, expecting them to fix it, but they won't. You demand a refund. They refuse. You check your contract and realize you were scammed legally. This is the used car lemon loophole, a system that allows dealerships to sell broken, unsafe, and defective vehicles to unsuspecting buyers and get away with it completely. Because in the used car industry, fraud isn't a bug. It's a feature, the hidden truth about certified pre-owned cars. Many buyers assume that a certified pre-owned CPO car is guaranteed to be in good condition. Dealerships advertise them as being rigorously inspected, with only the best used cars making the cut. But here's the dirty little secret. The certification process is completely controlled by the dealership. There is no universal standard for what qualifies as a CPO car. A dealership could slap a certification label on a vehicle with a damaged transmission, faulty electronics, or a history of severe accidents. As long as they don't legally have to disclose the problems, they won't. Even worse, many of these cars were previously wrecked, flooded, or stolen. Take Hurricane Katrina in 2005. Hundreds of thousands of cars were submerged in floodwaters, making them completely unsafe. But instead of being scrapped, many were cleaned up, given new paperwork, and resold as certified pre-owned. From the outside, they looked perfect. Under the hood, a ticking time bomb. And here's the worst part. Dealerships aren't required to tell you the truth. The as-is scam. Why the dealer doesn't care. What happens after you drive off the lot? If you've ever bought a used car, you've probably seen the term as-is buried somewhere in the paperwork. It sounds harmless, just a legal formality, right? Wrong. As-is a legal shield that allows dealerships to completely wash their hands of responsibility once the car leaves their lot. Once you sign that contract, you're stuck with whatever hidden problems the car has. The engine could blow up the next day, and legally, the dealership wouldn't owe you a dime. This loophole allows dealerships to knowingly sell defective cars with zero accountability. And it gets worse. In many states, lemon laws don't apply to used cars. Lemon laws are designed to protect consumers from defective new vehicles. But for used cars, you're completely on your own. Even if the car turns out to be a total disaster, the dealer can simply say, "Hey, you bought it as is, not our problem." And in court, that defense works almost every time. The odometer rollback scam. How dealers fake mileage to trick you. Another massive scam in the used car industry. Odometer fraud. When you see a car with low mileage, you assume it hasn't been driven much. But what if that 50,000-mile car actually has 200,000 miles on it? Dealerships and shady sellers can roll back digital odometers, making cars look much newer than they actually are. And it's shockingly easy. For as little as $100, criminals can buy an odometer rollback tool online. In minutes, they can erase tens of thousands of miles from a car's history, boosting its resale value by thousands of dollars. Even major dealerships have been caught doing this. In 2019, a Florida car dealership was sued for selling cars with falsified mileage reports. Customers bought them thinking they were low-mileage, reliable cars, only to later discover they had been driven into the ground. By the time they realized, it was too late to get their money back. The extended warranty scam. Paying for protection that doesn't exist. If you've ever bought a used car, you've probably been pressured into buying an extended warranty. The dealership makes it sound like a lifesaver, a plan that will cover expensive repairs if something goes wrong. But here's what they don't tell you. Most extended warranties are worthless. They're filled with loopholes and exclusions that make them almost impossible to use. Your transmission dies? Not covered. Your engine explodes? Not covered. Your electrical system fails? Not covered. Even if you do manage to file a claim, the repair process is designed to be a nightmare. Companies delay payments. They demand ridiculous amounts of paperwork. They find any excuse to deny your claim. And since dealerships make huge commissions off selling these warranties, they'll pressure you relentlessly to buy them. In the end, you paid extra for peace of mind that doesn't exist. How car dealers legally lie to you and get away with it. Car dealerships are one of the least regulated industries in the U.S. They lobby aggressively to keep laws in their favor. They fight against stronger consumer protections. They make billions by keeping these scams alive. And if you try to fight back, they have teams of lawyers who will bury you in legalese. For them, deception isn't a mistake. It's part of the business model. Can you protect yourself? Yes, but you have to be extremely careful. Here's how to avoid getting scammed. Always get a third-party inspection. Never trust a dealership's certified pre-owned claim. Have a mechanic check the car before buying. Run a vehicle history report. Check Carfax or AutoCheck to see if the car has been in accidents, had odometer rollbacks, or was previously a rental vehicle. Avoid as-is sales whenever possible. If the dealership refuses to give a warranty, walk away. Read the fine print. Dealerships love hiding nasty surprises in contracts. Never sign anything without understanding it fully. Research your state's lemon laws. Some states have protections for used car buyers, but many don't. Know your rights before you buy. Don't buy extended warranties from the dealer. If you want one, get it directly from the manufacturer. Unfortunately, even with these precautions, many people still get trapped because at the end of the day, the system is designed to favor dealerships, not buyers. The bigger picture, a rigged industry that's getting worse. The used car market is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and because of lax regulations and legal loopholes, dealerships have almost unlimited power. Until laws change, they will continue to exploit buyers. Until accountability exists, they will keep getting away with it. And as long as consumers desperately need cars, they'll keep finding new ways to profit off our trust. So next time you walk into a dealership, remember, the real scam isn't just the car. It's the system that allows them to sell you a lie, legally. Because if you think buying a used car is bad, wait until you see how student loan companies keep borrowers in debt forever. The student loan trap. How borrowing for education becomes a lifetime sentence. Imagine this. You're 18 years old, fresh out of high school, and excited for your future. You've been told your whole life that a college degree is the key to success. Your parents encourage you to go. Your teachers push you toward it. Society insists that without higher education, you'll be left behind. But there's one problem. College is expensive. You sit down with a financial aid officer who reassures you, don't worry about the costs. Everyone takes out student loans. You'll pay it back easily once you graduate. So you sign the papers. Fast forward 4 years. You graduate, degree in hand, hopeful for your future. But instead of opportunities, you're drowning in debt. Your first loan payment arrives. The amount is shocking. You realize you owe more than you expected. The interest keeps growing. The job market is tough. Your starting salary barely covers rent. The bills keep coming. There's no way out. This is the student loan trap, a system that turns education into a financial prison, where borrowers are legally shackled to debt that follows them for decades, sometimes for life. Because in America, getting an education doesn't just cost money, it costs your freedom. The origin of the student loan crisis. How we got here. It wasn't always like this. There was a time when college was affordable. In the 1960s, tuition at a public university cost a few $100s per semester. A student could work part-time and pay their way through school without taking on debt. Then everything changed. In the 1980s and 1990s, tuition skyrocketed. Colleges began spending more on administrative costs, fancy buildings, and unnecessary amenities. At the same time, the government cut funding for higher education. The result? Students were forced to borrow more. Then came the banks. They saw an opportunity, a new market to exploit. With government backing, they began offering student loans to anyone, regardless of their ability to repay. It didn't matter if you were studying engineering or medieval poetry. If you signed up, they gave you the money. And just like that, the student loan industry exploded into a $1.7 trillion crisis. Why student loans are worse than any other debt. Most types of debt, credit cards, mortgages, auto loans, have one thing in common. You can escape them. If you get in over your head with credit card debt, you can file for bankruptcy. If you can't pay your mortgage, the bank can take your house. But the debt ends there. Even medical debt, one of the biggest financial burdens in America, can eventually be forgiven. But student loans, they never go away. You cannot discharge them in bankruptcy. You cannot escape them, even if you're unemployed. You cannot get rid of them, even if you're disabled. If you default on your student loans, the government will come after you. They can garnish your wages, they can seize your tax refunds, they can take your Social Security benefits. Yes, you heard that right. Even elderly retirees are still paying off student loans. It's the only type of debt in America where even dying doesn't always cancel it. Because in some cases, the debt transfers to your family. This isn't borrowing for education. This is financial servitude. The interest scam, how your debt grows. Even if you pay, let's say you graduate with $50,000 in student loans. You start making payments. You pay every single month for years. Yet somehow, your balance doesn't go down. Why? Interest. Student loans use compound interest, meaning your debt grows faster than you can pay it off. Let's do the math. If you owe $50,000 at an average 6.8% interest rate, your monthly interest alone is $283. If you can only afford to pay $300 per month, guess what? Only $17 goes toward your actual debt. The rest? Pure interest. This is why millions of borrowers have made payments for 10, 15, even 20 years, only to find that they owe more now than when they started. They're trapped in an endless cycle of debt, a system where you can pay for decades and still never be free. How the government profits off your debt. Here's the biggest scam of all. The government makes billions from student loans. You'd think a system meant to help students would at least break even, right? Wrong. The U.S. government profits an estimated $50 billion per year from student loan interest. They don't want you to pay off your loans quickly. They want you to stay in debt for as long as possible. Because every extra year you spend trapped in payments, that's billions in profit for them. This isn't about helping students. This is about turning them into permanent revenue streams. The scam of loan forgiveness. False hope for borrowers. You might have heard about student loan forgiveness programs. The government promises that if you make payments for 20 or 25 years, your remaining balance will be forgiven. Sounds great, right? Except it's a trap. Less than 2% of borrowers who apply for forgiveness actually receive it. Why? Because the system is designed to deny as many applications as possible. If you fill out one form incorrectly, you're disqualified. If you switch jobs and don't work for a qualified employer, you're disqualified. If you make a single payment late, you're disqualified. Thousands of borrowers have spent decades making payments, only to find out their loans won't actually be forgiven. They were tricked into believing there was a way out, only to realize they were trapped the entire time. The future. Is there any way out? The student loan crisis isn't going away. In fact, it's getting worse. Tuition keeps rising. Loans keep growing. Borrowers keep struggling. But there are ways to fight back. Refinancing. Some private lenders offer lower interest rates, but be careful. Refinancing removes federal protections, making it riskier. Income-driven repayment plans. If you qualify, your monthly payments are capped at a percentage of your income. Public service loan forgiveness. If you work for a government or nonprofit employer for 10 years, you could qualify for forgiveness, but the program has a 98% rejection rate. Advocacy and political pressure. Some politicians support student debt cancellation. While controversial, it remains a major issue in elections. But here's the hard truth. The system is designed to keep you in debt, and until real change happens, millions will remain trapped. So next time someone tells you to just go to college and take out loans, remember what happens when you sign that paper. You're not just taking out a loan, you're signing away your financial freedom. Because if you think this scam is bad, wait until you see how elite universities turned admissions into a pay-to-play system. The pay-for-play college admissions scandal. How the rich buy their way. And imagine spending years grinding through school, acing exams, stacking extracurriculars, writing the perfect admissions essay, only to find out that your seat at an elite university was never really up for grabs. Not because you weren't good enough, but because someone richer bought it first. This isn't a conspiracy theory. It's reality. For decades, America's most prestigious colleges have been running a system that benefits the wealthy, not just through hard work or merit, but through legalized bribery, insider access, and outright corruption. While regular students take on crushing debt for a shot at a better future, the rich have found a simple loophole: pay-to-play admissions. And in 2019, the world finally got a look inside this rigged system. The scandal that shocked the country. Operation Varsity Blues. In March 2019, Operation Varsity Blues made headlines as one of the biggest college admissions fraud cases in U.S. history. The FBI uncovered a scheme where dozens of wealthy parents, including celebrities, CEOs, and financiers, were caught paying bribes to get their kids into top universities. The mastermind? Rick Singer, a college consultant who had built a secret backdoor into elite schools for a price. Here's how the scam worked. Fake athletic credentials. Parents paid to have their kids admitted as student athletes, even if they had never played the sport. Photos were doctored, achievements fabricated, and college coaches bribed to accept them as recruited athletes. Rigged SAT and ACT scores. For students who weren't athletes, Singer had another trick: a fraudulent testing scheme. Parents paid to have someone else take their child's SAT or to have a test proctor quietly change the answers after they were submitted. Direct bribes to admissions officers and coaches. The final play? Money. Parents wired cash, sometimes millions, to Singer, who then funneled it through fake charities to pay off college insiders. And the price of admission? Lori Loughlin, Aunt Becky from Full House, paid $500,000 to fake her daughter's way into USC as rowing recruits. Felicity Huffman, Desperate Housewives, paid $15,000 to boost her daughter's SAT score. Altogether, parents funneled over $25 million to secure admission for their kids. The result? Students who didn't belong took the spots of those who actually worked for it. The real shock: this wasn't even the worst of it. Operation Varsity Blues revealed a dirty secret. The rich have been buying their way into top universities for decades, and the truth is, they don't even need to break the law to do it. Because while some wealthy parents got caught in illegal scams, most use perfectly legal ways to rig the system. The legal ways. The rich buy their way. Think of Operation Varsity Blues as the underground version of a completely legal scam that happens every year. Here's how the wealthiest families ensure their kids get into elite schools without ever needing to bribe anyone. The legacy advantage. Affirmative action for the rich. Ever wonder why the same wealthy families keep getting into Harvard, Yale, and Princeton generation after generation? It's called legacy admissions, and it's one of the biggest advantages money can buy. Harvard's general acceptance rate, 4.6% Harvard's acceptance rate for legacy students. Samsipsam jom yugposinte. Princeton admits over 30% of legacy applicants, while non-legacies face a 6% chance. Why? Because these students aren't just applicants. They're future donors. The billionaire donation pipeline. Buy a building. Buy a spot. For those who aren't legacy students, there's another way in. Cold, hard cash. Ever notice how elite universities suddenly get new buildings named after billionaire families? That's no coincidence. It's an unspoken deal. In 1998, Jared Kushner, Donald Trump's son-in-law, got into Harvard with mediocre grades. The same year, his billionaire father donated $2.5 million. In 2017, a Chinese billionaire paid $6.5 million to guarantee his daughter's acceptance into Stanford. Columbia, Yale, and USC have all been caught in donor admission scandals, where students with no qualifications were admitted simply because their families wrote big checks. At this level, you don't apply to college. You buy a seat. The private college consultant industry, a legal cheat code. For those who can't donate millions, there's another option. High-end college consultants. Companies like Ivy Coach charge up to $1.5 million per student to craft the perfect application. These firms write essays for students, coach them on exactly what to say in interviews, strategically build their resumes years in advance, sometimes fabricating extracurriculars. The result? Wealthy students get a manufactured application, while working-class students are left to figure it out on their own. Who loses? The students who actually deserve it. Every time an unqualified rich kid buys their way into a top university, a deserving student loses their spot. And while the wealthy use backdoors, working-class students face impossible odds. First-generation students navigating the system alone. Public school kids competing against elite private schools with infinite resources. Low-income applicants who can't afford SAT tutors, essay coaches, or unpaid internships. These students fight for every inch, only to watch a billionaire C-student kid bypass them entirely. The fallout. Did anything actually change? After Operation Varsity Blues, people expected massive reforms. Did they happen? Not really. Some colleges removed SAT requirements, but that only made it easier for rich students to get in without test scores. Some universities claimed they'd be more transparent, but legacy admissions still exist. A few schools fired employees caught in the scandal, but none faced real consequences. At the end of the day, colleges still pay to win. The bigger scam, college itself. We're told college is the great equalizer, that it's the path to success, the way to build a future, but that's a lie. Because while working-class students take on massive debt, the wealthy don't even need their degrees. They go to college for networking, not education prestige, not knowledge, a guaranteed spot in the family business, not to earn their own way. Meanwhile, millions of students graduate into a lifetime of debt, because while the wealthy pay their way into exclusive universities, another industry is using legal loopholes to hold life-saving medicine hostage. Imagine needing a drug to stay alive, but a pharmaceutical company owns the patent and keeps the price just out of reach. That's not just an ethical failure. It's a business model. The pharmaceutical patent scam. How Big Pharma keeps drug prices high. Imagine you're diagnosed with a life-threatening disease. The good news? There's a drug that can save your life. The bad news? It costs $500,000 per year. Your insurance won't cover it. Your savings won't last. And the pharmaceutical company that holds the patent? They don't care, because this isn't about healthcare. It's about control. This is the pharmaceutical patent scam, a loophole so profitable that companies will do anything to keep it alive. They tweak formulas, manipulate laws, and shut down competitors, all to maintain an iron grip on drug prices. And the worst part? It's completely legal. Patents were supposed to encourage innovation. A company develops a new drug, they get exclusive rights for 20 years, and in return, they bring life-saving medicine to the world. But somewhere along the way, the system stopped serving patients. Now it serves shareholders. And instead of using those 20 years to innovate, Big Pharma uses them to find ways to make that exclusivity last forever. This is how they do it. How drug patents become a life sentence. A patent should expire after 20 years. When that happens, generic drug makers should be allowed to enter the market, dropping prices by 80 to 90%. That's how it's supposed to work. But it almost never does, because pharmaceutical companies have mastered the art of evergreening, a strategy where they tweak drugs just enough to qualify for a brand new patent. Maybe they change the dosage, maybe they add a coating, maybe they turn a pill into a gel cap, or switch to a time-release formula. The drug is the same, but the patent reset for another 20 years. And if that isn't enough, they create combination drugs, taking two existing medications and selling them as a single pill. Another loophole that lets them extend exclusivity. But sometimes, they don't even change the drug at all. Instead, they use patent clustering, filing hundreds of overlapping patents on a single drug, making it nearly impossible for generics to compete. The more patents they file, the harder it becomes to challenge them. And if a competitor tries to fight back, they get buried in lawsuits that drag on for decades. This is why life-saving drugs never become affordable. The insulin nightmare. Insulin was invented over a century ago. The scientists who discovered it sold their patent for $1. They believed no one should profit from a drug that millions depend on. But that vision died the moment pharmaceutical companies got involved. Today, insulin costs hundreds of dollars per vial. Not because it's expensive to make, it costs about $6 to produce, but because drug companies have repatented it dozens of times, blocking generics at every turn. Patients die because they can't afford it. Some ration their doses, stretching out insulin for as long as possible, knowing that too much or too little could put them in a coma. Others travel to Canada or Mexico, where the same insulin costs a fraction of the price. But most are trapped, paying whatever price Big Pharma demands, because without insulin, they won't survive. And it's not just insulin. The $600 EpiPen. An EpiPen is a simple device, a plastic tube with a needle that delivers a dose of epinephrine. For years, it was affordable. Then, Mylan Pharmaceuticals took control. In 2007, an EpiPen cost about $50. By 2016, the price had soared to over $600. What changed? Nothing. There was no breakthrough, no new technology, just a tweaked delivery mechanism, enough for a new patent. And because Mylan controlled the market, they could charge whatever they wanted. When patients and lawmakers demanded answers, Mylan blamed research and development costs. But there were no R&D costs. The drug inside? Ephedrine. Over 100 years old. The price hike was pure profit. Even when generics finally entered the market, the damage was done. Mylan had already made billions, and competitors struggled to gain traction. The lesson was clear. If you control a life-saving drug, you control life itself. Humira, the best-selling drug in history. No drug has exploited the patent system more than Humira, a treatment for arthritis and autoimmune disorders. Since its release, Humira has earned over $200 billion in revenue. It was supposed to lose its patent in 2016, but its manufacturer, AbbVie, wasn't ready to give up its cash cow. So, they filed over 250 new patents on Humira. Every minor change, every new method of delivery, every tiny adjustment, each one was another lock on the monopoly. Competitors couldn't get through. Generic versions were delayed for 7 more years. And when the patents finally expired, AbbVie had one last trick. They released their own authorized generic version of Humira, pricing it just below competitors, ensuring that patients would stick with the brand they knew. This isn't innovation. This is manipulation. The cost of monopoly. Big Pharma justifies these tactics by claiming that high prices fund research, that without monopolies, innovation would die. But the numbers tell a different story. Most pharmaceutical R&D isn't funded by drug companies at all. Taxpayer money, through government grants and university research, pays for the initial development. Big Pharma steps in later, buying patents from smaller companies, then using legal tricks to keep prices high. The profits don't go to research. They go to marketing and lobbying. Drug companies spend twice as much on advertising as they do on research. They flood Congress with money, ensuring that lawmakers never pass real patent reform. Meanwhile, 1 in 4 Americans skip medications because of cost. They delay treatment, they get sicker, they die, not because the medicine doesn't exist, but because it's locked behind a paywall. How they keep generics out. Even when a patent finally expires, Big Pharma doesn't just surrender its profits, they fight back, pay for delay deals, where brand name companies pay generic manufacturers to not release cheaper alternatives, patent lawsuits, burying competitors in legal fees, forcing them to back down, exclusive insurance contracts, where only the brand name drug is covered, keeping generics off the shelves. Even when generics exist, many patients never get access to them because the system isn't designed for consumers. It's designed for corporations. Can the system be fixed? The only way to stop this scam is real patent reform, ending evergreening, banning duplicate patents, and closing the loopholes that let monopolies extend forever. Faster generic approvals could prevent delays, letting competition drive prices down the moment a patent expires. Government price controls, like those in Canada and the UK, could stop drug companies from setting arbitrary prices. Breaking the pay-for-delay scheme would eliminate backroom deals, where Big Pharma bribes generic companies to stay out of the market. But these changes won't happen without a fight, because the pharmaceutical industry doesn't see patients. They see consumers. They don't cure diseases. They manage them for profit. And as long as medication remains a commodity, they will keep doing what they do best, maximizing profits, blocking competition, and keeping drug prices just out of reach, because this isn't about healthcare anymore. It's about power. And if you think drug companies are the worst offenders, just wait. There's another industry that profits from your personal information. One that doesn't just control life-saving medicine, it controls you. The Facebook data harvest. How your personal information became a billion-dollar commodity. Imagine this. You open Facebook, scroll for a few minutes, like a post, maybe leave a comment. You check an ad that catches your eye. Nothing major, just another routine moment online. But what you don't realize is that in those few minutes, Facebook has recorded everything. Not just what you clicked, but how long you hovered over a post, what your eyes were drawn to, the way your fingers scrolled, the mood you were in when you engaged with certain content. And that data, it's not just for Facebook. It's being packaged, analyzed, and sold to the highest bidder. Because in the world of big tech, you aren't the customer, you're the product. And Facebook's data harvesting empire isn't just about targeted ads. It's about control. How Facebook became the biggest data hoarder in history. When Facebook launched in 2004, it was just a college social network. But founder Mark Zuckerberg quickly realized that the real value of the platform wasn't in the social connections. It was in the data behind them. The more Facebook knew about you, the more valuable it became. By 2018, Facebook wasn't just a social media company. It was one of the largest surveillance networks in history, collecting more personal data than most governments. The company's data tracking capabilities expanded rapidly. 2007, Facebook launches Beacon, a program that tracks users' purchases and browsing history, even when they're not on Facebook. 2011, the Federal Trade Commission, FTC, accuses Facebook of misleading users about privacy settings. The company agrees to a 20-year oversight deal. 2012, Facebook buys Instagram for $1 billion, not just to expand its reach, but to absorb its users' data into its system. 2014, Facebook acquires WhatsApp for $19 billion, promising not to merge data with Facebook accounts. Within 2 years, it does exactly that. 2015, reports reveal that Facebook is tracking non-users, people who never even signed up, through hidden scripts embedded in websites. Facebook's hunger for data became unstoppable. And then everything exploded. The Cambridge Analytica scandal, when Facebook's data-fueled political manipulation. In 2018, a whistleblower exposed one of the biggest tech scandals in history. Facebook had secretly allowed a political consulting firm, Cambridge Analytica, to harvest the personal data of 87 million users without their consent. How? Through a simple quiz app. Thousands of people downloaded a personality test on Facebook. What they didn't realize? The app collected not just their data, but the data of their friends. Cambridge Analytica then used psychological profiling to target voters in the 2016 US presidential election and the Brexit campaign. This wasn't just about ads. It was about manipulating emotions, spreading misinformation, and influencing global politics, all through Facebook's data. The fallout was massive. Facebook was fined $5 billion, one of the biggest corporate penalties in history. CEO Mark Zuckerberg was dragged before Congress to explain how it happened. Governments around the world demanded stricter privacy laws. But here's the real kicker. Despite the scandal, Facebook never really stopped. The data goldmine, how Facebook still tracks you everywhere. Even if you don't use Facebook, it still tracks you. It does this through pixel tracking. Websites install a Facebook tracking pixel that records your activity, even if you never log in. Shadow profiles. Facebook builds hidden ghost profiles for non-users, linking phone numbers and email addresses found in others' contacts. Location tracking. Even with location services turned off, Facebook can estimate where you are through Wi-Fi and Bluetooth signals. AI-driven behavior analysis. Facebook's AI doesn't just track what you do, it predicts what you'll do next, feeding you content to manipulate your choices. This endless data stream is why Facebook, now Meta, makes $117 billion per year, with over 97% of its revenue from advertising. But the real danger? It's not just about ads anymore. It's about how Facebook sells influence. The hidden buyers. Who owns your data? Facebook doesn't just keep this data, it sells access to it. And the buyers? They aren't just brands selling sneakers. Pharmaceutical companies use it to target vulnerable users with ads for high-priced drugs. Credit card companies track financial behaviors to push predatory loans. Political campaigns exploit emotional triggers to spread propaganda. Law enforcement agencies access data to monitor protests and surveil individuals, sometimes without warrants. And Facebook, it doesn't just allow this, it profits from it. The algorithm that feeds you what you fear. Facebook's greatest power isn't just collecting data, it's deciding what you see. Every piece of content on your feed is chosen by an algorithm, one designed not to inform you, but to keep you scrolling. How? By feeding you what makes you react the strongest. Anger spreads faster than joy. Fear spreads faster than facts. Lies spread 6 times faster than truth. Studies have shown that Facebook's algorithm prioritizes outrage and division because it keeps people engaged. And engagement, it means more data, more ads, more money. The real cost, how Facebook's data empire is reshaping the world. The consequences of the system aren't just digital, they're real-world disasters. 2018, Facebook was used to incite genocide in Myanmar, with military leaders spreading hate speech against the Rohingya people. 2020, Facebook's algorithm fueled election misinformation, leading to violence in the U.S. Capitol riots. 2021, the Facebook Papers leak revealed that the company knew Instagram was harming teenage mental health, but did nothing. And still, Facebook keeps growing. Meta now owns Instagram, WhatsApp, and Oculus, expanding its data harvesting reach even further. Facebook's AI is advancing, allowing even deeper profiling and prediction of user behavior. The metaverse is coming, where Facebook won't just track your clicks, but your movements, emotions, and conversations in real time. Can anything stop it? Governments have tried to rein in Facebook, but so far, nothing has worked. The EU introduced GDPR, making it harder for companies to collect user data. The US fined Facebook billions, but it's just a drop in the bucket. Lawsuits keep coming, but Facebook keeps paying its way out. The truth? Facebook is too powerful to regulate easily. The only real solution? Users waking up to the fact that they are the product and fighting back. Some are deleting Facebook entirely. Others are demanding stronger data protections. But as long as people keep using it, Facebook keeps winning. Because the next scam, it's not just about data. It's about how the richest and most powerful people in the world manipulate the financial system for their own gain. Congressional insider trading. How lawmakers profit from the rules. They write, imagine you're playing a game where you already know the outcome. Every move you make is guaranteed to win. Every decision benefits you personally because you control the rules. That's exactly how congressional insider trading works. While everyday Americans invest in stocks with limited knowledge, hoping to make informed decisions, lawmakers operate with a secret advantage. They write the laws, regulate industries, and receive classified briefings. And then, they trade stocks based on this privileged information. And the best part? It's completely legal. For decades, U.S. lawmakers have bought and sold stocks in industries they directly oversee, profiting off information that the public doesn't have access to. And when it's exposed, they deny, deflect, and keep getting richer. This is the scam of congressional insider trading, and it's a racket that's been running for years. The congressional trading loophole. Why politicians keep winning. Insider trading is illegal for ordinary Americans. If a CEO tells a friend that his company is about to announce record-breaking profits, and that friend buys stock before the news goes public, that's a crime. It's called insider trading, and people go to prison for it. But if a U.S. senator receives a classified briefing about an upcoming economic crisis and then sells off millions in stock before the market crashes, that's just smart investing. At least, that's how Congress sees it. Lawmakers are not held to the same insider trading laws as the general public. They can use non-public government information to buy and sell stocks freely. And because they're the ones creating laws and regulations, they have a huge financial advantage over everyday investors. How Congress cashed in on the COVID-19 crisis. One of the most infamous examples of congressional insider trading happened in early 2020, just as the COVID-19 pandemic was about to rock the world. In January and February of 2020, senators were privately briefed about the potential economic devastation that COVID-19 would bring. The public? At that time, most Americans had no idea what was coming. The government was still downplaying the virus, but behind closed doors, lawmakers were dumping millions in stocks. Right before the market crashed, here's who got caught. Senator Richard Burr, the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, sold up to $1.7 million in stock after receiving a classified briefing about the pandemic. Days later, the market tanked. Senator Kelly Loeffler, after a private meeting about COVID's economic impact, Loeffler and her husband sold stocks in companies that would soon take massive losses while buying shares in remote work and healthcare companies. Senator Dianne Feinstein, her husband sold between $1.5 million and $6 million in stock before the crash. Senator Jim Inhofe dumped hundreds of thousands of dollars in stocks after receiving the same briefings. These weren't coincidences. They were deliberate financial moves made by people who knew what was coming. The real kicker? After a brief investigation, no one faced any real consequences. Because in Congress, the game is rigged. Why Congress never bans insider trading for lawmakers. When public outrage over congressional stock trading reaches a boiling point, politicians pretend to address the issue. Like in 2012, when the Stock Act was passed. The Stock Act was supposed to ban insider trading for Congress, forcing lawmakers to publicly disclose their trades. Sounds good, right? Here's the problem. In 2013, just 1 year later, Congress quietly gutted the law. The penalties for breaking it were removed. Financial disclosure rules were loosened. The government stopped enforcing it altogether. So today, Congress still trades stocks freely, and the system is more corrupt than ever. How politicians get even richer in office. For many members of Congress, politics isn't about serving the public. It's about getting rich. Consider this. The average American household has a net worth of about $121,000. The average member of Congress has a net worth of over $1 million. Many senators and representatives leave office with fortunes worth tens of millions. And how do they make so much money? By trading stocks based on inside knowledge. And they don't even have to trade personally. Many lawmakers use blind trusts or let their spouses handle investments. Nancy Pelosi, her husband Paul Pelosi, is an active stock trader with a track record of suspiciously well-timed investments. In 2021, he made millions trading tech stocks right before Congress passed laws affecting big tech. Dan Crenshaw, the Texas congressman, has made millions in stock trades while sitting on committees that regulate industries he invests in. Tommy Tuberville, the senator from Alabama, was caught making dozens of stock trades in companies he oversaw, but claimed he didn't even know about them. They all have one thing in common. They know what laws are coming, what industries will be affected, and when major policy changes will happen, and they use that knowledge to make millions. How Congress hides its stock trades. Congressional insider trading is one of the most blatant forms of legal corruption, yet lawmakers have found ways to keep their financial moves out of the public eye. Even though members of Congress are required to disclose their stock trades, they've mastered 3 key tactics to ensure the public never truly knows the full extent of their insider dealings. 1. Delayed and incomplete disclosures. Under the Stock Act, lawmakers must report stock trades within 45 days, but there's a loophole. If they forget to report on time, there's virtually no penalty. They just pay a small fine, sometimes as little as $200. Many lawmakers intentionally delay their filings, knowing that by the time their trades are public, it's too late for anyone to act on the information. Some politicians simply fail to disclose trades entirely and face zero consequences. In 2021, more than 50 members of Congress violated the Stock Act by failing to report stock trades. Not a single one faced serious punishment. When disclosures are filed, they're intentionally vague. Instead of reporting exact dollar amounts, lawmakers only report broad ranges like $100,000 to $250,000, making it difficult to track precise profits. And who's responsible for enforcing these disclosures? Congress polices itself, meaning there's no real oversight. 2. Using family members as proxies. Many members of Congress don't trade stocks in their own names. Instead, they let their spouses, children, or trusts handle it. Nancy Pelosi's husband, Paul Pelosi, has made millions in suspiciously well-timed trades, particularly in tech stocks like Google, Apple, and Microsoft. These trades often happen right before Congress takes action on big tech regulations. Senator Richard Burr's brother-in-law dumped stock on the same day Burr received a classified COVID briefing, just minutes after speaking on the phone with the senator. Senator Tommy Tuberville claimed he had no idea he was making stock trades because they were being handled by a financial advisor. But records show that he was actively investing in defense companies while sitting on the Armed Services Committee. By running trades through family members and financial advisors, lawmakers distance themselves from direct responsibility while still cashing in on insider knowledge. And if they ever get caught, they just say, "I don't manage my own portfolio." Case closed. 3. Trading in secret with blind trusts. Another popular loophole, blind trusts. A blind trust is a legal arrangement where a lawmaker hands control of their investments to a third party, in theory, so they don't influence their own financial decisions. But in reality, blind trusts are barely regulated. Lawmakers still know what's in them, and their independent managers can easily make trades that align with congressional actions. In 2021, Senator Tommy Tuberville moved assets into a blind trust, but not before racking up massive stock trades in companies affected by his own committee's work. In 2012, former Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin placed assets into a blind trust, but somehow, he managed to cash out at just the right time before major financial policy shifts. Blind trusts sound ethical on paper, but in practice, they're just another cover for insider trading. How congressional insider trading hurts ordinary Americans. Every time a lawmaker trades stocks using insider knowledge, they're stealing opportunities from everyday investors. They aren't playing the same game as the public. They always win, while regular people take the losses. Here's how it affects you. 1. Market manipulation and crashes. When Congress knows a financial crisis is coming, they dump stocks early, while the public remains clueless. Before the 2008 financial crash, multiple lawmakers sold off real estate and banking stocks before the crisis hit, while publicly reassuring Americans that everything was fine. Before the 2020 pandemic crash, senators secretly offloaded millions while telling the public that the economy was strong. By the time everyday Americans see the warning signs, it's already too late. 2. The government protects certain companies. At your expense, Congress has the power to make or break industries. And when they have personal investments in certain sectors, they rig the game to benefit themselves. Big tech. Many lawmakers own stocks in Google, Amazon, and Facebook, which is why Congress rarely passes laws that truly regulate big tech. Big Pharma. Congressional members invest in drug companies, then vote against policies that would lower prescription prices. Defense contracts. Politicians who own stock in weapons manufacturers ensure the U.S. keeps spending trillions on military contracts. Every time Congress protects its own investments, taxpayers lose. Why the system will never fix itself. There have been countless attempts to ban lawmakers from trading stocks, but every time Congress finds a way to block or weaken the reform. In 2022, a bipartisan bill to ban congressional stock trading was proposed. It had huge public support. It was never even brought up for a vote. Why? Because Congress won't vote to stop itself from making millions. And even when a ban is passed, lawmakers rewrite the rules to make sure they still win. The only real solution? Public pressure, exposure, outrage. Because if the American people stop accepting corruption as normal, Congress might finally be forced to change. But will they? Or will they keep rewriting the rules to benefit themselves? Because if you thought congressional insider trading was bad, wait until you see how the airline industry scams travelers out of billions every year. The airline refund scam. How airlines profit from your misery. Imagine this. You book a flight months in advance, planning the perfect vacation. You double-check the details, pay extra for baggage, maybe even upgrade your seat. Then, at the last minute, the airline cancels your flight. No warning, no explanation. Just an automated message saying, "We're sorry for the inconvenience." You assume you'll get a refund. After all, you paid for a service the airline didn't provide. But when you check, the airline isn't offering your money back. Instead, they give you a voucher, one that comes with restrictions, blackout dates, and an expiration date. You didn't cancel the flight, they did, but now they get to keep your money. This is the airline refund scam, a multi-billion-dollar scheme that allows airlines to profit from canceled flights, forcing passengers to either take the loss or play by the airline's rules. And most people don't even realize they're being scammed. And the worst part, the government allows it. How airlines get away with keeping your money. Airlines have spent decades engineering refund policies that let them keep your money, even when they cancel your flight. Here's how they do it. 1. Refunds are available, but only if you fight for them. Airlines know that most passengers don't read the fine print. So when a flight is canceled, instead of issuing an automatic refund, they send passengers an email offering a credit voucher instead of cash. Bury refund request links deep in their website, making them hard to find. Require passengers to call customer service, where they're placed on hold for hours. Train customer service agents to delay, discourage, or redirect refund requests. Most people give up, and that's exactly what airlines count on. 2. The voucher trap. If you accept a voucher instead of cash, you've just lost your refund. Airlines make sure their vouchers are non-transferable, meaning you can't sell them or give them away. Full of restrictions, including blackout dates and limited flight options. Time-sensitive, often expiring within 12 months, forcing you to book another flight before you're ready. And here's the kicker. If you book a flight with a voucher and that flight gets canceled, many airlines won't issue a new voucher or refund. They'll just keep the money. 3. Overbooking, the pre-planned cancellation scam. Airlines don't just cancel flights because of bad weather or technical issues. They do it on purpose. Overbooking, selling more tickets than there are seats, is standard practice in the airline industry. Why? Because airlines gamble on the fact that some passengers won't show up. But when too many people do show up, the airline has two choices: offer voluntary compensation, paying passengers to take a later flight, cancel flights, and force passengers to reschedule, often on worse terms. They almost always choose option 2 because it lets them avoid giving out compensation while still keeping customers' money locked in. 4. Hidden no-refund policies. Most airlines use non-refundable tickets as their default option, even for expensive flights. If you cancel your flight, no refund. If you change your mind, no refund. If your plans get disrupted for any reason, no refund. But what about when they cancel? Technically, U.S. law requires airlines to offer a full refund if they cancel a flight. But instead of following the law, airlines use delays, rebookings, and travel credits to avoid paying out. And when passengers finally demand refunds, they're met with months-long delays or bureaucratic roadblocks that make getting your money back a nightmare. The multi-billion-dollar scam that airlines depend on refund fraud isn't a side hustle for airlines. It's part of their business model. In 2020, when COVID-19 shut down the travel industry, airlines canceled hundreds of thousands of flights. Under federal law, they were supposed to issue refunds. Instead, they illegally withheld refunds from passengers, pocketed billions in unused ticket sales, pressured customers into accepting vouchers instead of cash. Some airlines even refused to issue refunds at all, unless customers sued them. Here's how much money they held hostage. United Airlines, $1.5 billion in unpaid refunds. American Airlines, $800 million. Delta Airlines, $500 million. And when passengers complained to the government, the airlines face no serious consequences. Because here's the truth, airlines have rigged the system so that even when they cancel flights, they still win. Why regulators won't fix it? You might think, if this is illegal, why doesn't the government step in? The answer? Because airlines have too much power. The airline industry has. Lobbyists who fight against refund laws, ensuring weak enforcement. Senators and Congress members who own airline stocks and don't want regulations to hurt their investments. Billions in bailout money, which lets them operate like monopolies, knowing they'll always get rescued. Even when airlines break the law, the government gives them a slap on the wrist. For example, in 2021, The U.S. Department of Transportation (DOT) investigated airlines for failing to issue refunds during the pandemic. The result? Airlines had to pay back some refunds, but kept billions in profits. The fines they paid? A fraction of what they earned from the scam. The message was clear. If airlines break refund laws, nothing really happens. How airlines could be stopped, but won't be. There are simple ways to stop airlines from scamming passengers. Automatic refunds for canceled flights. Instead of forcing passengers to chase refunds, airlines should be required to automatically return money when a flight is canceled. Ban non-refundable tickets for canceled flights. If an airline cancels, the customer should always get cash, not vouchers. Severe penalties for refund violations. Airlines that refuse to issue refunds should pay triple the refund amount as a fine. Independent refund enforcement. Instead of letting airlines police themselves, the government should create an independent agency to handle complaints and force airlines to comply. Public transparency on refund data. Airlines should be required to publish the number of refund complaints they receive, so passengers know which airlines scam the most. The problem? Airlines won't allow it. Every time a bill is introduced to fix refund abuse, the airline industry floods Washington with lobbyists to kill it. Because if passengers started getting their money back, airlines would lose billions in stolen revenue. And in their eyes, that's unacceptable. Can passengers fight back? Airlines bet on passengers giving up. Most people don't have the time, patience, or resources to fight airlines for a refund. But here's what you can do. Always demand a cash refund. Never accept a voucher. File a complaint with the Department of Transportation (DOT). Dispute the charge with your credit card company. Use small claims court if necessary. Book flights with airlines that have stronger refund policies. The only way to force change? Public pressure. Because when enough people stop accepting these scams as normal, airlines will finally be forced to stop. But will they? Or will they keep inventing new ways to take your money and never give it back? The funeral industry racket. How grief became a billion-dollar business. Imagine this. You just lost a loved one. The grief is unbearable, the shock hasn't worn off, and before you even have time to process what happened, you're sitting across from a funeral director discussing prices. You don't want to haggle. You don't want to negotiate. You just want to honor the person you lost in the way they deserve. And the funeral home knows that, because what should be a moment of mourning is actually a moment of profit. This is the funeral industry racket, a system designed to exploit the grieving, inflate prices, and manipulate families into spending thousands on unnecessary services. Funerals aren't just a final goodbye. They're a business, and a very profitable one. And if you think a funeral home is just offering compassion and care, you have no idea what's really happening behind the scenes. The business of death, a multi-billion-dollar industry. Most people don't think of funerals as big business, but the numbers don't lie. The funeral industry in the United States alone is worth over $20 billion per year. The average funeral costs between $7,000 and $12,000, but can go much higher depending on upsells, hidden fees, and deceptive pricing. Cremations, often seen as the affordable alternative, have also been monetized and marked up, sometimes costing as much as a full burial. Funeral homes make up to 60% profit margins on caskets alone, because grieving families don't shop around for better deals. And here's the scam inside the scam. A funeral home might seem like a small family-run business, but in reality, a handful of corporate giants control the industry, and their job isn't to offer affordable, dignified services, it's to maximize revenue at every step. The monopoly of death. How corporations took over. If you walk into a funeral home, you might assume you're dealing with a local business, maybe a family that's been in the industry for generations. But in most cases, you're actually dealing with one of a few corporate giants. The biggest player? Service Corporation International, SCI, a multi-billion-dollar corporation that owns thousands of funeral homes and cemeteries across North America. But they don't want you to know that. To keep the illusion of a local family-run funeral home, companies like SCI keep the old names on the signs, retain staff, and operate under a network of smaller brands. So you don't realize you're dealing with a massive corporation. Why? Because people trust small businesses more than faceless corporations. And when you're in mourning, you're more likely to believe they're looking out for you, when in reality, they're following corporate pricing models designed to squeeze every dollar out of you. The grief pricing scam. How they charge you more when you're vulnerable. If you've ever shopped for a car, You know that dealerships take advantage of uninformed buyers. Now imagine walking into a car dealership right after your spouse, parent, or child just died. That's what buying funeral services feels like. Except it's worse, because you're not just uninformed, you're emotionally compromised. You're not thinking clearly. You're in shock, mourning, denial, and funeral homes know this. So they use tactics that exploit your grief to drive up costs. The guilt upcharge. How much did you love them? If you've ever planned a funeral, you've heard this line in some form. Sure, this basic casket is fine, but wouldn't you want something a little nicer? Something worthy of them? Translation? How much do you love the person you lost? The implication is clear. If you choose the cheap option, you're failing them. The industry weaponizes guilt to convince grieving families to overspend on unnecessary luxury services. The funeral package scam, tricking you into paying for more than you need. Many funeral homes bundle services into packages, making it difficult to understand what you're actually paying for. Instead of listing clear, itemized prices, they present pre-selected funeral packages that conveniently exclude lower-cost options. Want just a simple cremation? Suddenly, you're being pressured into viewing rooms, flowers, an urn upgrade, and printed programs, all bundled into one costly package you didn't ask for. And if you try to decline certain items, they'll tell you, well, it's all part of the package. We can't remove it. They make it seem like you don't have a choice, when in reality, you absolutely do. The casket price trick, marking up the most expensive item. The single most overpriced funeral expense? The casket. Funeral homes buy caskets wholesale for a few $100s, then mark them up 400% to 600%. Some caskets cost $5,000 to $10,000 for an item that is literally buried underground. Many states don't require caskets at all, but funeral homes won't tell you that, because it's their most profitable item. And if you try to buy a casket elsewhere, they'll warn you, we can't guarantee the quality. There may be extra fees if we have to handle an outside casket. It's all designed to scare you into overpaying. The hidden fees, what they don't tell you until it's too late. Even if you agree to a price, the final bill is often higher than expected, because funeral homes pile on hidden fees. Some of the most ridiculous charges include body storage fees. If you don't make burial arrangements fast enough, you get charged daily fees for keeping the body. Funeral home service fees, a vague general charge that's basically just an extra way to take more of your money. Required paperwork fees, some funeral homes charge hundreds just to fill out death certificates and permits, even though it's a basic administrative task. Cemetery fees, even after you pay for burial, you may be charged extra for grave opening, maintenance, or even a temporary marker. By the time everything is added up, a simple funeral can cost tens of thousands of dollars. And once you've signed the paperwork, there's no going back. The alternative. They don't want you to know. Direct cremation. The funeral industry doesn't want you to know this, but you don't need a traditional funeral at all. The cheapest, simplest option is called direct cremation, where the body is cremated immediately without embalming, viewing, or unnecessary services. The cost? As low as $500, a fraction of what a traditional funeral costs. But funeral homes bury this option in their pricing sheets because they can't make much money from it. They want you to buy the full experience because that's where the real profit is. The final question: should death be this expensive? The funeral industry sells itself as a compassionate service, but at its core, it's just another business. A business that preys on grief, guilt, and emotional vulnerability. A business that charges thousands for things that cost hundreds. A business that exploits people in their darkest moments and turns death into a financial burden. And if you think this scam is bad, wait until you see how casinos don't just take your money. They design their entire business model to make sure you lose. The casino edge. How gambling is engineered to keep you losing. Imagine stepping into a casino. Bright lights, ringing slot machines, free drinks, and the unmistakable hum of excitement. Everywhere you look, people are gambling. Some winning, most losing, but all convinced that the next hand, the next spin, the next bet might be the one that changes everything. But here's the truth. It won't, because casinos aren't just places of chance. They are carefully engineered financial machines designed to ensure that, in the long run, you lose. This is the casino edge, the built-in mathematical advantage that guarantees casinos always come out on top. It's not a secret. It's not a conspiracy. It's just the way the system is designed. And once you see how deep the rabbit hole goes, you'll realize the moment you place your first bet, the casino has already won. The business model of losing. Why casinos never go. Broke casinos aren't gambling. You are. They don't take wild risks or bet against you at random. Every game, every rule, every payout is carefully calculated to give them an edge. And in the long run, that edge always wins. Here's how it works. Every casino game, whether it's slots, blackjack, roulette, or craps, has a built-in house edge, which ensures that over time, the casino will make money. This house edge is small enough that gamblers believe they have a chance, but large enough that casinos make billions every year. Even when someone wins big, it's just part of the plan. Casinos use high-profile winners as marketing tools to keep more people playing. The longer you play, the more likely you are to lose. Casinos don't need you to lose immediately. They just need you to stay long enough for the math to work in their favor. And once you're inside, they have dozens of tricks to keep you playing. The science of losing. How casinos manipulate you. Casinos don't just rely on math. They rely on psychology. Everything about a casino, from the layout to the lighting to the sounds of the machines, is scientifically designed to make you gamble longer and spend more. Here's how. 1. No clocks, no windows. Making time. Disappear. Ever notice that casinos don't have clocks? That there are no windows to show if it's day or night? That's not an accident. Casinos are built to make you lose track of time. If you don't know how long you've been playing, you're more likely to stay longer. If you can't see that it's 3 a.m., you're less likely to think, I should go home. If you're in a timeless environment, gambling stops feeling like a limited activity and starts feeling endless. The longer you stay, the more you lose. 2. Free drinks. Impaired judgment. Casinos don't just give you free alcohol out of generosity. They do it because they know the more you drink, the worse your decisions become. A sober person might set a budget and walk away when they hit their limit. A drunk gambler is more likely to chase losses, make riskier bets, and keep playing even when they're broke. Alcohol numbs your ability to think rationally, and that's exactly what casinos want. It's not about hospitality. It's about making sure you're too impaired to stop. The near-miss effect, the biggest slot machine scam. Ever notice how slot machines always seem to land just one symbol away from a jackpot? That's not luck. It's a psychological trick called the near-miss effect. Studies show that when gamblers experience a near win, the same part of their brain lights up as if they actually won. This triggers the desire to keep playing because it makes people feel like they are almost there. In reality, they aren't close at all. Slot machines are programmed to make near misses happen more often than they naturally should, so players keep chasing an impossible jackpot. And the worst part, the jackpot might not even be possible to hit at all. The rigged math. Why the house always wins. Casinos don't need to cheat. The math is already in their favor. Every single game has an invisible tax built into it. The house edge. Let's break it down. Slot machines. The silent money drain house. Edge. 5% to 15%. Meaning, for every $100 you bet, you lose $5 to $15 on average. Slots are programmed to pay out just enough to keep you playing, but never enough for you to walk away a winner. They're also the fastest game in the casino, meaning you can burn through hundreds of dollars in minutes. Roulette. The simple trick that guarantees you lose house edge. 5.26%. That extra green 00 on the wheel, that's what makes the casino money. The payout for a single number is 35 to 1, but the actual odds of hitting it are 37 to 1. Meaning, even when you win, you're getting paid less than you should be. Blackjack. The skill game. That's still rigged house. Edge, 0.5% to 2% if you play perfectly. Blackjack feels like a fair game, but casinos change the rules to push the odds in their favor. They use multiple decks, change payout ratios, and ban card counters to keep the house edge intact. Even poker, which is a player versus player game, makes casinos money through rake fees, taking a percentage of every pot. The longer you play, the more money goes to the house. And yet, the biggest casino scam isn't even in the games themselves. It's in the way they turn losing into addiction. How casinos create whales. Casinos don't make most of their money from casual gamblers. They make it from addicted players. Studies show that 80% of a casino's revenue comes from just 20% of gamblers, the ones who can't stop playing. Casinos call them whales, and they do everything in their power to keep them hooked. Step 1. The VIP treatment. How casinos turn losers into high rollers. Casinos track everything you do. If you start betting big, they flag you as a potential whale and roll out the VIP treatment. Free suites and luxury hotels, private jets to Vegas, exclusive tables with personal hosts, complimentary meals, shows, and services. It feels like they're rewarding you. But in reality, they're baiting you. Because once you feel like a high roller, you start betting like one. And the moment they've squeezed every dollar out of you, the perks disappear. Step 2. The loss discount trick. How casinos keep you playing after you lose. When whales lose millions, casinos don't want them to feel the pain right away. So they offer rebates. Lose $500,000, they might give back $50,000 in free play. It feels like you're getting a second chance, but you're actually just losing slower. The goal? Make sure you keep playing until you're completely broke. And once you are, the casino moves on to the next whale. How gambling is engineered to keep you losing. If casinos were truly about luck and fair play, the house wouldn't always win. But the reality is that casinos are carefully calibrated profit machines, designed to ensure that every gambler, from casual players to high rollers, ultimately loses more than they win. And while the math behind it is bad enough, the real scam isn't just in the numbers. It's in how casinos actively manipulate players into financial ruin, using a playbook of psychological tactics, addiction science, and legal loopholes to drain every last dollar from the people who can least afford it. This is the casino edge, not just a mathematical advantage, but a predatory system that turns human psychology into cash. Let's break down the darkest side of gambling, where casinos stop being entertainment and start becoming a trap. The psychology of casino addiction, how gambling becomes a financial death spiral. Casinos don't just want customers, they want repeat customers. And the best way to create repeat gamblers? Make them addicted. Here's how they do it. Step 1. The illusion of control, making you believe you can win. People gamble because they believe they have a chance. But here's the truth. In roulette, blackjack, slots, craps, and every other game, the casino's edge is always there, ensuring that over time, players lose more than they win. But if casinos made losing obvious, people wouldn't play. Instead, they create the illusion of control, letting players feel like their decisions influence the outcome even when they don't. For example, in slot machines, you press the button, but the machine was programmed to decide your loss before you even touched it. In craps, rolling the dice yourself makes the game feel more interactive, but the probabilities are already stacked against you. In blackjack, card counting is seen as a way to beat the house, but casinos actively change the rules to ensure even skilled players are at a disadvantage. The trick? Casinos make losing feel like a matter of skill when it's really just a matter of time. Step 2. The losses disguised as wins. Trick. Ever played a slot machine and seen flashing lights and jackpot sounds? Even though you actually lost money, that's not a mistake. Many modern slots use a trick called losses disguised as wins. LDW. Instead of losing outright, the machine gives you a partial win, where your payout is less than what you bet, so you feel like you're winning, even when you're actually losing money. Casinos have tested these machines in laboratory settings and found that players who experience frequent small wins, even if they're losing overall, are more likely to keep gambling. In short, casinos manipulate your brain into thinking you're winning, so you don't realize how much you're actually losing. Step 3. The gambler's fallacy. The lie that keeps you playing. Every gambler knows this feeling. I've lost so many times in a row, I must be due for a win. This is called the gambler's fallacy, and it's one of the most powerful psychological traps in gambling. If a roulette wheel lands on red 5 times in a row, players think black is more likely to hit next. If a slot machine hasn't hit a jackpot in hours, people believe it's ready to pay out. If a player has been losing all night, they believe they're due for a comeback. But in reality, each spin, roll, or hand is independent. The odds never change, but casinos want you to believe they do. Why? Because if you think your luck is about to turn, you'll keep playing. And the longer you play, the more you lose. The final truth. Gambling is not a game. It's a business model built on financial ruin. Casinos don't make money because some people win. They make money because most people lose. And for every one lucky jackpot winner, there are thousands of broken gamblers who lost their homes, savings, and futures chasing a dream that was never real. Casinos exploit human psychology, turning financial ruin into a billion-dollar business. But what happens when the same level of corporate greed doesn't just empty bank accounts? It destroys entire ecosystems because the next scam, it's not just about money, It's about how corporations legally destroy the planet and get away with it. The environmental scam. How corporations legally destroy the planet. Imagine waking up one morning to find the river near your home turned bright red. The fish are dead. The air reeks of chemicals, and the local news says it's nothing to worry about. But within months, cancer rates spike, crops fail, and people start moving away, leaving behind a ghost town poisoned by corporate greed. Now imagine the company responsible doesn't just escape punishment, they make billions doing it again. This is the environmental scam, the legal con that allows corporations to profit from pollution, exploit natural resources, and destroy ecosystems while paying nothing close to the true cost. They'll tell you they're going green, they'll say they're investing in sustainability, they'll slap a leaf logo on their products, but behind closed doors, the same companies poisoning your water, clear-cutting rainforests, and melting the Arctic are funding the very policies that let them keep doing it. And here's the worst part. It's not illegal. How corporations legally pollute and get you to pay for it. Pollution isn't just an accident. It's a business model. For decades, industries have calculated the cost of pollution and decided that paying fines is cheaper than fixing the problem. How do they get away with it? Regulatory capture. Corporations lobby lawmakers to write weak environmental laws or create loopholes that let them pollute without consequence. Fines over fixes. Strategy. Instead of changing their practices, companies accept pollution fines as part of their budget because it's more profitable than actually stopping the damage. Blame the consumer. When pollution gets bad, companies shift responsibility onto you, telling individuals to recycle, buy electric cars, or reduce waste while they continue polluting on a massive scale. Take ExxonMobil, Shell, and BP, some of the world's biggest polluters. In the 1980s, their own research showed that fossil fuels were driving climate change. Instead of warning the public, they buried the science and spent millions funding climate skepticism campaigns to convince the world that climate change wasn't real. By the time the truth came out, they'd already made trillions, and the planet was locked into a climate crisis. And they're not alone. The carbon credit scam, the fake solution that lets companies pollute. More ever heard of carbon credits? They're supposed to be the solution to pollution, letting companies offset their carbon footprint by investing in green projects. Sounds good, right? Except it's one of the biggest scams in environmental history. Here's why. Companies keep polluting, but instead of reducing emissions, they buy carbon credits from green projects, like tree planting programs. Many carbon offsets are fraudulent. Studies show that most carbon-neutral claims are meaningless because the projects don't actually offset the emissions. Some offsets do more harm than good. For example, forests planted as carbon offsets often replace natural ecosystems, making biodiversity loss even worse. Take Volkswagen. In 2015, the car giant was caught cheating emissions tests to make their diesel cars appear cleaner than they actually were. They claimed to be reducing pollution while secretly pumping 40 times the legal limit of nitrogen oxide into the air. And when they got caught, they paid billions in fines. But their executives walked free. They made so much money from the scam that even after paying penalties, they were still massively profitable. That's the real game. Pollute, get caught, pay a fine, repeat. And while companies like Volkswagen get away with fraud, you're the one being told to turn off your lights, drive less, and recycle. The recycling myth, why it was never meant to work. For decades, we've been told that recycling is the key to saving the planet. Plastic? Just recycle it. Paper? Toss it in the blue bin. Aluminum cans? They'll be turned into new ones. But what if I told you that recycling was never designed to work? Only 9% of plastic waste has ever been recycled. The rest, burned, dumped in landfills, or floating in the ocean. Most plastic isn't recyclable at all. Even the ones with recycling symbols often end up in the trash because processing them is too expensive. Corporations knew this. They pushed the idea of recycling onto the public to distract from the fact that they were producing more plastic than the planet could ever handle. The scam was exposed when internal documents from ExxonMobil revealed that oil companies lied about recycling to keep plastic production booming. And guess who pays the price? Not them. You do. You pay taxes for recycling programs that barely work. You feel guilty about your plastic waste, while corporations make millions of tons of it every year. And while you try to recycle a plastic bottle, big oil companies are lobbying to make even more plastic, Because recycling was never the real plan. The plan was to keep you distracted while they kept polluting. This is just the beginning. We've seen how corporations profit from pollution, fake climate solutions, and the recycling myth. But the worst is still coming. Because what if I told you that some companies don't just destroy the planet, they profit from disasters too? How corporations profit from disaster. The planet is on fire. Glaciers are melting, the air is toxic, and somehow, the richest corporations in the world are making more money than ever. Because here's the biggest scam of all. Environmental destruction isn't just an accident of capitalism. It's a business model. When hurricanes wipe out entire cities, when wildfires turn forests into ash, when droughts kill crops, corporations don't just survive. They profit. And the worse things get, the more money they make. Because in this rigged system, disaster isn't a crisis. It's an opportunity. The business of burning. How fossil fuel companies profit from climate change. It's no secret that the oil industry is responsible for a massive share of global pollution. But what most people don't realize? The companies causing climate change are the same ones profiting from it. Take ExxonMobil, Shell, and Chevron, three of the biggest fossil fuel giants. For decades, they covered up climate science, spent billions fighting environmental regulations, and lobbied governments to keep drilling. Now that climate disasters are hitting harder, they raise their prices, push new drilling projects, and blame global instability for their record profits. Look at 2022, a year of wildfires, hurricanes, and the worst droughts in human history. And yet, big oil made more money than ever before. Chevron's profits, $35.5 billion. Shell's profits, $40 billion. ExxonMobil's profits, $56 billion. The most they've ever made in a single year. Because when the world burns, oil prices spike. When natural disasters destroy infrastructure, gas shortages drive up prices. And when the climate crisis deepens, politicians don't crack down on fossil fuels. They give oil companies even more power, calling for energy independence, while approving new drilling. It's not a flaw in the system. This is the system. The water crisis. How corporations turn a basic human right into a luxury water, the most basic resource on Earth, essential for life. But in the 21st century, water is a commodity, and corporations are hoarding it, polluting it, and selling it back to the public at insane profits. Nestlé is one of the biggest offenders. For decades, they've been stealing public water, bottling it, and reselling it at a markup thousands of times its actual cost. They drain aquifers, depleting entire water supplies in drought-prone areas. They pay pennies for water rights, but charge you dollars per bottle. And when local communities protest, they fight back with lawsuits, lobbying, and political influence. In 2021, Nestlé was caught illegally pumping millions of gallons from California's San Bernardino National Forest during a drought. Did they stop? Number. They simply renamed their bottled water brand and kept selling it. And Nestlé isn't alone. Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and Danone are all in on the bottled water scam, profiting off a resource that should be free while millions go without clean drinking water. Meanwhile, Wall Street investors are turning water into the next oil, buying up water rights, betting on future shortages, and treating a basic human necessity like a stock market gamble. It's not just unethical, it's life or death. Because when corporations control water, they control who gets to live. The wildfire economy. How insurance and developers profit from destruction. Every year, wildfires destroy millions of acres of land. Entire towns burn to the ground. And while families lose everything, corporations cash in. Insurance companies, who should be paying out claims to fire victims, use disasters as an excuse to raise premiums, cancel policies, and deny payouts. Real estate developers, who should be building responsibly, use destruction as a green light for new luxury developments, wiping out entire ecosystems for profit. Take California. Wildfires have doubled in intensity over the last decade. The state's forests are drier than ever, thanks to decades of mismanagement and climate-driven droughts. And yet, instead of banning high-risk developments, corporations push forward with new suburban projects, placing homes directly in the fire's path. Why? Because when the houses burn, developers don't lose money. They get government bailouts, insurance payouts, and new land approvals to rebuild bigger and more expensive. They profit from destruction. And when the cycle repeats, they profit again. It's not bad luck. It's planned obsolescence on a national scale. The billion-dollar industry of disaster relief. You'd think that when disasters strike, relief efforts would focus on helping victims. But in reality, disaster relief is a corporate gold mine. Every time a hurricane hits, every time a flood displaces thousands, the same private companies swoop in to profit. Look at FEMA contracts. The Federal Emergency Management Agency is supposed to help disaster victims, but instead, it funnels billions of dollars to private contractors who charge outrageous fees for basic services. $36 for a single bottle of water, $1,500 for a tent that costs $200 to produce, $100 million contracts awarded to companies that never even deliver supplies. After Hurricane Maria devastated Puerto Rico in 2017, the U.S. government gave a $156 million food supply contract to a one-person company with no disaster relief experience. The result? No food was ever delivered. But the money? It was already gone. And while victims waited for relief, the corporations walked away richer. Because in disaster capitalism, the suffering of millions is just another revenue stream. Greenwashing. How corporations sell you. The illusion of sustainability. Corporations know people care about the environment, but instead of actually changing their ways, they spend billions convincing you that they're the solution. This is greenwashing, the practice of making companies look eco-friendly while they continue polluting at full speed. Take BP, the oil giant responsible for one of the worst oil spills in history. After the Deepwater Horizon disaster in 2010, BP rebranded itself as Beyond Petroleum. They launched ad campaigns about clean energy. They put solar panels on their websites, and yet 99% of their investments still went into fossil fuels. Or take McDonald's. In 2019, they replaced plastic straws with paper ones. Great, right? Except the paper straws weren't actually recyclable. They were just a marketing stunt, while McDonald's continued to produce millions of tons of plastic waste. Greenwashing isn't just misleading. It's corporate fraud. And every time you see a company claim to be carbon neutral or sustainable, ask yourself, are they actually changing, or are they just selling you a lie? The bottom line, the planet isn't dying. It's being killed. The environmental crisis isn't just happening. It's being engineered for profit. Corporations aren't just bystanders in climate change, pollution, and resource depletion. They're the driving force. They destroy, they profit, they lie, and they do it all legally. Because in this system, the environment isn't a responsibility. It's just another asset to be exploited. And if you think this scam is bad, wait until you see how Wall Street turned the housing market into a financial time bomb. The housing market manipulation. How the rich rig real estate against you. Imagine saving for years, skipping vacations, cutting expenses, just to afford a down payment on a home. You find the perfect place, make an offer, and wait. Then, you get the news. Your offer was rejected. Why? Because a hedge fund just outbid you, not by a little, but by tens of thousands of dollars. In cash. Instantly. You never stood a chance, and you're not alone. All across the country, ordinary people are losing the ability to own homes, not because they can't afford them, but because the system has been rigged. This isn't an accident. It's a deliberate strategy where corporations, banks, and the ultra-rich manipulate real estate to lock people out of home ownership and trap them in lifelong rent cycles. Because in today's economy, houses aren't homes anymore. They're investment vehicles for the wealthy. And if you think the housing market is broken, you're wrong. It's working exactly as intended, just not for you. Turning homes into an asset class. For the wealthy decades ago, houses were meant for living in. Families bought homes to settle down, build wealth, and pass something down to their kids. But today, houses are financial assets first, places to live second. The shift started in the early 2000s when Wall Street realized that single-family homes could be turned into a commodity, just like stocks or bonds. 2008, the financial crisis led to millions of foreclosures. Big banks swooped in and bought properties in bulk at rock-bottom prices. 2010s, hedge funds and private equity firms entered the market, buying homes not to live in, but to rent out for maximum profit. 2020s, institutional investors now own hundreds of thousands of homes, driving up prices and squeezing buyers out. The result? Home ownership rates are at historic lows. Corporate landlords dominate entire neighborhoods. First-time buyers are priced out. forced to rent indefinitely. Why? Because renters make hedge funds richer. How corporations outbid regular buyers. If you've tried buying a home in recent years, you've probably noticed houses sell within hours of being listed. Sellers prefer cash offers over mortgages. Prices jump tens of thousands of dollars overnight. Here's what's really happening. Institutional investors, like BlackRock, Vanguard, and Invitation Homes, use algorithms to instantly scan listings and make offers before you even have a chance. They bid higher than asking price, sometimes 20 to 50% over market value. They pay in cash, beating buyers who need a mortgage. They buy homes in bulk, securing entire neighborhoods. This strategy eliminates competition and drives home prices higher. And once they own these homes, they turn them into high-priced rentals, making it even harder for people to save to buy. They charge excessive fees for maintenance, late rent, and lease renewals. They raise rent aggressively because they know renters have no alternatives. And if you think this is just a few bad actors, think again. In some cities, investors now buy up to 40% of all homes. This isn't supply and demand. This is financial warfare against homebuyers. The Airbnb effect. How short-term rentals kill local housing. It's not just hedge funds inflating home prices. Short-term rentals, Airbnb, VRBO, have turned homes into hotels, shrinking supply and driving up costs for everyone else. Here's how it works. Investors buy homes not to live in, but to rent out on Airbnb for higher profits. Entire neighborhoods turn into ghost towns, where locals are pushed out for tourists. Cities with high Airbnb saturation see rents skyrocket as fewer long-term rentals are available. Example, in Barcelona, locals protested as over 13,000 homes were converted into short-term rentals, pricing families out. In New York, strict rent laws were undermined by landlords who secretly turned apartments into illegal Airbnbs. In Los Angeles, the rise of short-term rentals led to a 40% decrease in available long-term housing. Governments try to regulate this, but corporations find loopholes. Because why rent to a local for $2,000 a month when you can rent to tourists for $500 a night? The result? Fewer homes available for real families, higher rent, higher home prices, and lower stability for everyone. And the biggest losers? First-time buyers who just want a place to live. Mortgage rates and the Federal Reserve. Why you'll never catch up. Let's say you finally save enough for a down payment. Now comes the next problem. The cost of borrowing money. The Federal Reserve controls interest rates, which directly affect mortgage costs. When rates are low, home prices skyrocket because borrowing is cheap. When rates are high, mortgages become unaffordable, locking buyers out. And here's where big investors win again. While regular buyers struggle with high mortgage rates, hedge funds and corporations buy homes in cash, dodging interest costs completely, meaning they keep buying even when rates are high. They control inventory, keeping prices artificially high. Regular buyers get squeezed, whether rates are up or down. This cycle ensures that the wealthy always win, while ordinary people stay trapped. And when home prices do crash, guess who buys everything at a discount? The same hedge funds that created the problem. The ultimate goal, turning everyone into renters. Why would the wealthy rather own homes and rent them out than let people buy? Because in their eyes, home ownership is bad for business. Homeowners build wealth. Renters build wealth for their landlords. Owning a home means stability. Renting means you can be evicted or priced out at any time. Mortgages eventually get paid off. Rent is forever. And in an economy where wages are stagnant and costs keep rising, permanent renting locks people into a lifetime of dependency. That's why Wall Street keeps buying more houses, because as long as you don't own, you'll always be paying someone who does. Where this leads next. This isn't just a housing problem. It's a financial coup. The same people who crashed the housing market in 2008 by inflating home values and selling bad mortgages are now buying up those same homes and renting them back to you. And the worst part? They're not even done yet. How Wall Street became America's largest landlord. For decades, landlords were individuals, people who owned a house or two, maybe a few apartment buildings, and rented them out. But that all changed after 2008. When the housing market crashed, millions of homes went into foreclosure. Regular people lost everything, but banks and hedge funds swooped in to buy. Instead of selling those homes, they rented them out, turning the housing crisis into a rental empire. The result? Today, corporate landlords own more homes than ever before. Invitation Homes, owned by Blackstone, owns over 80,000 houses. Progress. Residential, American Homes, For Rent and Tricon Residential own hundreds of thousands more. Hedge funds are even buying mobile home parks, where tenants have even fewer rights, and their business model is simple. Buy up as much property as possible, raise rents aggressively, use their monopoly power to squeeze tenants. But they aren't just buying homes anymore. They're buying entire communities. Corporate-owned cities, the future of housing? It sounds impossible. How could a corporation own a city? But this is already happening. In Nevada, tech billionaire Jeffrey Burns bought 67,000 acres of desert land, planning to build a privately owned city where all transactions run on blockchain. In Texas, real estate investors have bought up entire suburban neighborhoods, turning them into permanent rental zones. In California, corporations have started buying up land at an unprecedented rate, fueling speculation about a company-run city in the making. And in some places, they've already succeeded. In Silicon Valley, most housing is owned by tech companies, forcing employees to live in overpriced, company-controlled homes. In company towns, where corporations own not just housing, but grocery stores, utilities, and public spaces, tenants have no rights, no choice, and no way to escape. What does this mean for regular people? Rents will keep rising because there's no competition. Home ownership will be nearly impossible because corporations will own everything first. Entire communities will be shaped by corporate interests, not the people living in them. And once corporations own entire cities, they won't stop because there's one thing more profitable than controlling homes: controlling land itself. Land grabs, how the ultra-rich are buying up the future. It's not just about housing anymore. The world's wealthiest individuals and institutions are buying land at an alarming rate. Why? Land is finite. Unlike stocks, more land can't be created. Land appreciates over time. The longer you hold it, the more valuable it becomes. Land gives control. Whoever owns the land sets the rules. And the biggest landowners today? Bill Gates is now America's largest private farmland owner, controlling over 270,000 acres across multiple states. Saudi Arabia and China have been buying up millions of acres of U.S. farmland, raising national security concerns. Hedge funds are buying forests, water rights, and even entire mountains, turning natural resources into financial assets. The goal: to own the land before anyone else can. And once they do, they control what gets built and what doesn't. They set the price, making it unaffordable for regular buyers. They hold land hostage, waiting for desperate governments to pay billions for it. And just like that, the American dream isn't just expensive, it's gone. How this ends: the permanent renter class. If nothing changes, the future of housing looks like this: a world where corporations own the vast majority of homes, land, and rental properties. A society where home ownership is reserved for the ultra-wealthy, while everyone else is forced to rent for life. A system where the middle class never builds wealth because rent takes every spare dollar. And once corporations own everything, they can charge whatever they want. Rent too high? Too bad. You have no other options. Maintenance issues? The landlord is a corporation that doesn't care. Evicted unfairly? Good luck fighting $1 billion company in court. This isn't a conspiracy theory. It's already happening. And if we don't stop it, owning a home will become as outdated as owning a castle. The diamond market scam: how a worthless rock became the ultimate status symbol. Imagine walking into a jewelry store. A velvet-lined case displays sparkling diamonds, flawless, rare, and priceless. The salesperson smiles, telling you, diamonds are forever. It's the ultimate symbol of love. This ring is an investment, one that will only go up in value. But here's the truth: it's all a lie. Because diamonds aren't rare, they aren't valuable, and they certainly aren't an investment. In reality, the diamond industry is one of the biggest corporate scams in history, built on manipulation, artificial scarcity, and ruthless marketing. Let's break down how a worthless rock became one of the most profitable scams of all time. The rarity myth: why diamonds are not rare. The biggest lie the diamond industry ever told: that diamonds are scarce. But the truth? There are billions of carats of diamonds buried in the earth, and yet you'll never see them flood the market. Why? Because one company controls it all. De Beers, the diamond cartel, has spent over 100 years stockpiling diamonds, releasing only a few at a time to create artificial scarcity. Whenever too many diamonds are found, De Beers hoards them in underground vaults, preventing the supply from rising. If any company outside De Beers finds a new diamond mine, they either buy it out or crush it with price wars. And this isn't just a historical trick. Even today, De Beers and other major diamond suppliers control how many diamonds enter the market, keeping prices artificially high. In the 1980s, Russia discovered massive diamond reserves in Siberia. Instead of selling them, they partnered with De Beers to slowly release diamonds over decades, avoiding a price crash. In 2001, geologists found a diamond mine in Canada with billions in untouched diamonds. De Beers quickly locked in contracts to control how they were sold. In 2018, De Beers itself began selling lab-grown diamonds, but at intentionally high prices, to prevent them from threatening their real diamonds. In short, diamonds aren't rare. They're just hidden. The fake value of diamonds. Why they're not investments. Think diamonds hold their value. Think again. The moment you buy a diamond and walk out of the store, its value drops by 50% or more. A high-end diamond ring, bought for $10,000, is worth just $3,000 to $4,000 if resold. Pawn shops, jewelers, and buyers won't pay anywhere close to what you spent because diamonds have zero resale market value. Unlike gold or silver, diamonds don't have intrinsic value. You can't melt them down and reuse them in the same way. So why do people believe diamonds are valuable? Because the industry never lets you sell them back. Major jewelers don't offer buybacks, meaning once you buy, you're stuck. Auctions only sell the rarest, most flawless diamonds, not the average engagement ring. De Beers and other companies spend billions in marketing to make sure people keep believing in the illusion. And when diamonds do get resold, the industry lowballs the price, forcing most people to just keep them, maintaining the illusion that they're valuable. It's a rigged market, one where you can only buy diamonds, but never sell them back at full price. And that's not an accident. The biggest marketing scam in history, how diamonds are forever, was invented. If diamonds were never rare or valuable, then how did they become the symbol of love and marriage? The answer? One of the most successful marketing campaigns ever created. In the 1930s, diamonds were considered a luxury. Only the ultra-rich bought them. Most people proposed with simple rings. Diamonds weren't even a tradition. De Beers needed to sell more diamonds, but demand was low. So in 1938, De Beers hired an ad agency to fix the problem. Their strategy? Convince men that buying a diamond ring was a requirement for marriage. Make women believe a diamond represented forever love. Pressure couples into spending 2 months' salary on a ring. And that's exactly what they did. The famous slogan, "A diamond is forever," was born. Ads in magazines and newspapers pushed the idea that diamonds were necessary for proposals. Hollywood stars and celebrities were paid to show off diamond engagement rings, making them feel aspirational. Schools were targeted with messaging about how diamonds symbolized eternal love, brainwashing generations into believing it, and it worked. Within a decade, diamonds became a wedding tradition. Men were shamed if they proposed without one. Women were conditioned to believe diamonds were romantic. And De Beers? They turned a worthless rock into $1 billion empire. But they weren't done yet. How the industry still manipulates prices. Today, you'd think with new diamond sources, lab-grown diamonds, and changing tastes, the diamond market would finally correct itself. But no, because the same manipulation still happens today. Lab-grown diamonds are now identical to natural diamonds, but the industry artificially inflates prices to stop them from devaluing real diamonds. Big diamond firms secretly stockpile gems, only releasing enough to maintain high prices. Jewelry brands push forever messaging, ensuring that younger generations still feel pressured to buy. And when diamonds start to lose popularity, the industry finds a new way to sell them. In the 1980s, Japan had no diamond tradition. De Beers launched a massive ad campaign convincing Japanese couples to adopt diamond engagement rings. In the 2000s, when the U.S. market slowed, the industry pushed diamonds in China and India, building a new generation of buyers. And in 2023, facing a decline in demand, the industry rebranded lab-grown diamonds as ethical luxury, keeping their massive profit margins alive. It's not about love, tradition, or value. It's about keeping the lie alive. Because if people ever wake up to the truth, the entire diamond market collapses overnight. How a worthless rock became the ultimate status symbol. We've established the truth. Diamonds aren't rare, they aren't valuable, and they certainly aren't an investment. The industry has spent a century manufacturing an illusion that fuels a multi-billion-dollar market. But what happens when the illusion starts to break down? With new technology, changing consumer attitudes, and growing distrust in the industry, the diamond market is at a crossroads. The question now isn't whether diamonds are a scam, We already know they are. The real question is, what happens when people stop believing the lie? Let's expose the next phase of the diamond industry's survival strategy, the lab-grown diamond revolution, the industry's biggest threat for decades. The diamond industry thrived on the idea that natural diamonds were special. But now, science has caught up. Thanks to advanced technology, companies can now create diamonds in a lab that are chemically, physically, and optically identical to mined diamonds. These lab-grown diamonds are made in weeks instead of taking millions of years underground, have zero environmental destruction or human rights abuses, cost 30 to 70% less than mined diamonds, while being just as flawless. And most importantly, they shatter the lie that diamonds are rare. So how has the diamond industry responded? Instead of accepting competition, they're using deception to fight back, artificially inflating lab-grown prices. The industry initially dismissed lab-grown diamonds as fake or synthetic, but when they realized demand was growing, they started selling them at higher prices to prevent them from making mined diamonds look cheap. De Beers launched its own line of lab-grown diamonds, but intentionally priced them high, so customers wouldn't view them as an alternative to natural diamonds, rebranding real diamonds as rare and authentic. The industry now markets earth-mined diamonds as more luxurious, rare, and genuine. They push emotional storytelling, claiming that only a mined diamond carries history and meaning. In reality, both are just carbon crystals, buying up lab-grown companies to control supply. Instead of fighting lab-grown diamonds, the big players are secretly acquiring lab diamond manufacturers so they can control the market just like they do with mined diamonds. But this is just the beginning, because while lab-grown diamonds expose the scam, the industry is already looking for its next move. The blood diamond crisis, hiding the dark truth. One of the diamond industry's biggest scandals, the blood diamond trade. For decades, diamonds have been used to fund war, exploitation, and human suffering. In Sierra Leone, Angola, and the Democratic Republic of Congo, warlords used diamond mines to fund brutal civil wars, enslaving workers, including children, to extract gems. Tens of thousands of people were killed, all while diamond companies bought these conflict stones and sold them worldwide. The 2006 film Blood Diamond exposed the issue to the public, forcing the industry to pretend to take action. Their solution? The Kimberley process. Marketed as a way to certify conflict-free diamonds, the Kimberley process was supposed to stop blood diamonds from entering the market. But the reality? The process only tracks diamonds from the point of export. It does nothing to prevent forced labor or human rights violations. Corrupt governments certify conflict diamonds as clean, allowing them to flood the market anyway. Many conflict-free diamonds still come from mines with child labor, abuse, and environmental destruction. In other words, the conflict-free label is just another marketing lie. And it gets worse, because as public outrage over blood diamonds grew, the industry found a new way to keep the scam going. The new lie: colored diamonds, rare cuts, and exclusive branding. As traditional diamonds lose their prestige, the industry is shifting the focus to new ways of making people overpay. The rise of fancy colored diamonds. Traditional white diamonds are losing their appeal, so jewelers now push rare colored diamonds as exclusive investments. Pink, blue, and yellow diamonds are marketed as ultra-rare, even though many of them come from the same mines as regular diamonds. The industry limits their release, creating another fake supply shortage. The exclusive designer cut. Scam traditional diamond cuts are losing value, so companies now sell branded cuts with special names. These diamonds aren't rarer or more valuable. They just have fancy patents on their shapes. Some jewelers convince customers that only their brand carries these unique diamonds, ensuring they can't be resold anywhere else, turning diamonds into investment assets. With diamonds losing their resale value, the industry markets ultra-rare diamonds as an investment class. Auction houses sell rare diamonds for millions, creating the illusion that diamonds appreciate in value. But for everyday buyers, regular diamonds still plummet in value the moment you buy them. No matter how the market shifts, the industry always finds a new way to keep the scam alive. What happens when the lie finally falls apart? For decades, the diamond industry has thrived on deception. They created fake scarcity. They manipulated markets. They convinced entire generations that diamonds meant love. But now, the cracks are starting to show. Younger generations are rejecting diamonds, opting for alternative stones, lab-grown diamonds, or no engagement rings at all. The resale market is flooded with unwanted diamonds, revealing how little they're actually worth. Consumers are becoming more aware of the scam, questioning whether diamonds are truly a symbol of love or just another corporate illusion. And if the industry can't adapt fast enough, the entire diamond empire could collapse. Because when people stop believing diamonds are rare, they stop buying them altogether. What comes next? The diamond scam is one of the longest-running financial illusions in history. But it's just one piece of a much larger pattern. Because if you thought diamonds were manipulated, wait until you see how the financial elite have done the same thing on a global scale. The hidden banking fees scam. Imagine this. You deposit money into your bank account, assuming it's safe. You check your balance regularly, make purchases, pay bills, and maybe even try to save a little. Then one day you look at your statement and notice something off. A few dollars missing here, a small service fee there, a random charge you don't remember agreeing to. You call your bank for an explanation. They throw a wall of fine print at you, pointing to terms you never read, fees you never agreed to, and policies that seem to change without notice. And just like that, your own bank, the one that claims to protect your money, is slowly draining it. This is the hidden banking fees scam, a system designed not to serve you, but to extract as much money as possible from every transaction you make. And the worst part? Most people don't even realize it's happening. The business of banking. Why banks make more money off you than you think. Banks present themselves as trusted institutions, safe places to store your money, offering loans, mortgages, and financial services to help you grow your wealth. But behind the scenes, banks don't make their money by helping you. They make their money by nickel and diming their own customers, trapping them in a cycle of fees, penalties, and hidden charges. Here's how it works. You deposit money into your account. The bank lends out your money, charging borrowers high interest rates. But instead of rewarding you for providing them with capital, they charge you fees for accessing your own money. Think about that for a second. Banks use your money to make themselves richer and then turn around and charge you for the privilege. And the most profitable part of this business? Fees. How banks quietly drain your money. The most common hidden fees. Banks don't just take money openly. They do it through a slow, steady trickle of fees. Charges that seem small at first, but add up to billions every year. Here are some of the most common ways they get away with it. Overdraft fees, the billion-dollar trap. The biggest moneymaker for banks? Overdraft fees. If your account goes negative, even by a single cent, the bank automatically covers the difference and charges you a fee. That fee, usually $35 per transaction. That means if you buy 3 small items, while your account is negative, you could get charged $105 in overdraft fees on top of what you spent. Banks make billions from overdraft fees alone, especially targeting low-income customers who can least afford them. Maintenance, fees, charging you for holding your own money. Some banks charge monthly account maintenance fees, even if you don't use the account. They justify it by saying it covers administrative costs, even though banking is now almost entirely digital. The real reason? To squeeze money out of account holders who don't read the fine print. ATM fees, paying to access your own cash. Need to withdraw money? If you use an out-of-network ATM, you could get hit with multiple fees. One from the ATM provider, one from your own bank. The total? Often $5 to $7, just to access your own cash. Foreign transaction fees? The travel scam. If you use your debit or credit card in another country, banks tack on a hidden foreign transaction fee, usually 3% of the purchase price. The real kicker, many banks charge this fee even when you shop online from an international retailer. Early withdrawal penalties, punishing you for using your own money. Some savings accounts and CDs, certificates of deposit. Lock your money in for a fixed period. Need to withdraw early? You'll be charged a penalty, often losing months of interest. Essentially, banks punish you for accessing your own savings. And these are just the obvious fees, because the biggest scams, they're the ones you don't even notice. The invisible fees. Banks don't want you to see banks. Love charging fees you don't know about, because if you don't notice them, you don't question them. Here are some of the most deceptive charges buried in your statements. Dormancy fees, charging you for not using your account. If you don't use an account for a certain period, banks can start charging a monthly inactivity fee. The logic? They want you to close unused accounts. But instead of just telling you, they drain your balance until there's nothing left. Statement fees. Charging you for paper statements. Banks claim to be going green, so they charge you for paper statements. But if you opt out of paper statements, they still bury fees in digital banking transactions. Excessive transaction fees on free accounts. Some banks offer free checking accounts, but with a catch. If you make too many withdrawals or transfers, they charge you extra transaction fees, meaning your free account could still cost you money. And the final dirty trick? Banks change their fees constantly, without warning. How banks legally get away with this? You might be wondering, how is this legal? The answer? Because banks write the rules. Here's how they keep the scam running. Burying fees in fine print. Banks don't hide fees completely, they just make them so confusing that no one reads them. Their terms and conditions, dozens of pages long, filled with legal jargon. By the time you find out about a fee, it's already been charged. Lobbying to block consumer protections. Banks spend millions on political lobbying to make sure laws favor them, not consumers. Every time lawmakers propose tighter regulations on overdraft fees, ATM fees, or hidden charges, banks fight back hard, hiding behind automation. Ever try calling a bank to dispute a charge? Endless automated menus, long wait times, and customer service reps who can't do anything. Banks make complaining about fees so frustrating that most people give up and just accept the charge. The end result? Customers lose billions every year. And while banks blame customers for not reading the terms, the truth is, they design the system to be as confusing as possible. The true cost of banking isn't just what they take from you, it's how they use your money to profit while keeping you trapped in debt. How banks drain your money without you. Noticing banks don't just take money from you through hidden fees. They use your money to make themselves richer while making sure you stay trapped in a cycle of debt, dependence, and financial insecurity. Because the real scam isn't just that they charge fees, it's that they make billions from your money without ever giving you a fair share. This is how the banking system is rigged against you. How banks profit off your deposits while giving you nothing in return. Most people assume their money is safe in a bank. After all, that's the whole point, right? But here's what really happens the moment you deposit your paycheck. Your money doesn't just sit in your account. The bank immediately lends it out to businesses, home buyers, and investors. They charge interest on these loans. The average mortgage interest rate, around 6%. The average credit card interest rate, over 20%. What do they pay you in return? A savings account interest rate of 0.01% to 0.5%. If you're lucky. Let's break that down. If you deposit $1,000 into your bank account, the bank lends it out at 6% to 20% interest. That means they make $60 to $200 per year from your money. What do they pay you? Pennies. Banks don't just use your money for profit. They keep almost all of it for themselves. And if you ever need to borrow your own money back, they charge you interest. The credit card trap. How banks profit off your debt. Most people think of credit cards as a convenience, but for banks, credit cards are the most profitable scam ever created. Here's how the trap works. The free money illusion banks push credit cards aggressively, offering 0% APR and sign-up bonuses to get people hooked. They market it as free money, but in reality, it's a high-interest loan disguised as a convenience. The minimum payment scam. When your statement comes, the bank highlights the minimum payment, as if that's all you need to pay. But paying only the minimum? It keeps you in debt forever. A $5,000 balance at 20% interest, if you only pay the minimum, it could take 30 years to pay off. The interest rate trap banks sell people on rewards programs, cashback deals, and points systems, all while charging outrageous interest rates. The average credit card APR, 20% to 30%. And if you miss one payment, some banks jack your rate up to 35% overnight. Credit cards aren't just about convenience. They're about keeping people in debt. Because as long as you owe money, banks make money. How banks use your debt to control you. Banks don't want you to pay off your debt quickly. They want you to stay in debt forever. Here's how they make sure that happens. The credit score manipulation. Your credit score is supposed to measure your financial responsibility. But banks use it as a weapon, rewarding those who stay in debt and punishing those who pay off their loans too fast. Example, if you carry a balance, banks see you as profitable and increase your credit limit. If you pay everything off, they lower your limit or even cancel your card. Hidden loan fees that cost you thousands. Taking out a mortgage, application fees, origination fees, closing costs, getting a car loan, documentation fees, and hidden add-ons, even personal loans, prepayment penalties. Banks charge you for paying back debt early. The student loan scam, keeping borrowers trapped for life. Student loans start with low interest rates, but once borrowers graduate, rates rise, repayment terms change, and fees kick in. Miss a payment? Late fees stack up, and interest capitalizes, making it nearly impossible to escape. Banks profit most when you're in debt, because as long as you owe them money, they own you. The banking system's biggest scam, too big to fail. Here's the final piece of the puzzle. Even when banks gamble and lose billions, they never face consequences. They take massive risks. With your money, banks invest in high-risk stocks, derivatives, and speculative markets. If their investments succeed, they keep the profits. If they fail, they get bailed out. When banks lose, taxpayers pay the bill. The 2008 financial crisis proved one thing. When banks crash, the public pays for their mistakes. The government handed out $700 billion in bank bailouts, while millions lost their homes. No one goes to jail. Even when banks commit fraud, price fixing, and money laundering, executives rarely face prison time. Instead, they pay a fine, which is nothing compared to their profits. In short, banks play by their own rules, and when they lose, you pay the price. Can anything be done? People have tried to fight back through lawsuits, regulations, and alternative banking options, but banks are deeply embedded in the system. Every time new laws try to curb their power, they lobby politicians, rewrite the fine print, or create new ways to extract money. So what can individuals do? Avoid high-fee banks. Credit unions and online banks often have lower fees. Use cash when possible. The fewer digital transactions you make, the fewer hidden fees you'll encounter. Pay off credit card balances in full. Never let banks trap you with high interest rates. Read the fine print. Banks rely on people ignoring the details. Know what you're signing. But the real issue? It's not just individual fees, charges, and interest rates. It's that the entire financial system is built to extract money from the public and transfer wealth upwards. The health insurance hoax. How the system is designed to deny care and trap patients in endless debt. Imagine this. You're perfectly healthy. You go years without stepping foot in a hospital. Every month, you faithfully pay hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars in health insurance premiums. Then one day, disaster strikes. A car accident, a sudden illness, a necessary surgery. You assume your insurance, the one you've paid into for years, will cover you. After all, isn't that the whole point? But when the bills start rolling in, you realize something horrifying. Your insurance company is refusing to pay. They claim you didn't get pre-approval, that the treatment wasn't medically necessary, that you went to an out-of-network provider. Suddenly, you're staring at a $100,000 hospital bill, all because of fine print, technicalities, and corporate greed. This is not a rare case. This is the system working exactly as it was designed to, because health insurance in the US isn't about health. It's about profit, and the real business of insurance isn't paying for care. It's finding ways not to. Let's break down exactly how they do it. The business model of denying care. When you sign up for health insurance, you assume it's a safety net, something that will protect you financially when you get sick. But for insurance companies, your health is a liability. They don't want to pay for care. Every dollar spent on medical treatment is a dollar lost from their profits. So instead of covering your healthcare needs, their business model revolves around collecting premiums, the monthly payments you make, delaying or denying claims, finding legal loopholes to avoid paying for your care, shifting costs onto patients through deductibles, co-pays, and network restrictions. The fewer claims they pay, the more money they make. And every year, they come up with new ways to block payments. The prior authorization scam, how insurers delay and deny life-saving treatment. Imagine your doctor prescribes you a crucial treatment, surgery, or medication, but before you can get it, your insurance company has to approve it. This process, called prior authorization, is one of the most insidious tactics insurers use to block care. Here's how it works. Your doctor prescribes a treatment. It could be chemotherapy, an MRI, or a life-saving drug. Your insurance company refuses to cover it unless they approve it first. The approval process is slow, often taking weeks or months. Many patients give up. They can't afford to wait and either pay out of pocket or go without treatment. For those who wait, many are denied anyway. Insurance companies reject claims based on arbitrary guidelines, forcing doctors to file appeals. And the most sickening part? These decisions aren't made by doctors. They're made by insurance company employees, often with no medical background, who are trained to approve as little as possible. The result? 1 in 4 cancer patients experience delays in treatment because of prior authorization. Patients with life-threatening illnesses are denied care outright because insurers hope they give up. Some people die before ever getting approval, and insurance executives, they pocket millions in bonuses for cutting costs. How insurers use in-network and out-of-network loopholes to overcharge patients. Most people assume having health insurance means they're covered, but then they learn about network restrictions. Go to an in-network doctor, your costs are lower. Accidentally see an out-of-network provider, you could be charged 10 times more. Have an emergency and get taken to an out-of-network hospital? Insurance may refuse to pay at all. This is not bad luck. It's intentional. Insurance companies and hospitals constantly change networks to make sure patients fall into the out-of-network trap. Hospitals keep ER doctors out of network on purpose so they can charge inflated rates. Patients are given misleading provider lists, only to find out their doctor is suddenly out of network when they get the bill. Surprise billing loopholes mean even insured patients get hit with 5-figure bills. And in a true emergency, you don't have time to check which ambulance, which hospital, or which doctor is in network. But that doesn't matter, because insurers will still deny the claim, forcing you to pay thousands. The deductible scam. How insurance makes you pay before they ever cover anything. Most people assume once they have insurance, their medical expenses will be covered. But before insurance pays a dime, they make you pay thousands. That's called the deductible, the amount you have to pay out of pocket before your insurance even starts covering care. And every year, deductibles go up. In 2006, the average deductible was $303. In 2023, it was over $1,500, and double that for families. What does that mean? Even with insurance, most Americans can't afford to go to the doctor. They pay thousands in premiums, only to be told they have to pay even more before coverage kicks in. And if they can't afford it, they skip care, get sicker, and end up with even higher medical bills. The end result, medical debt, is the #1 cause of bankruptcy in America. If health insurance was designed to protect people from catastrophic medical costs, why is medical debt the #1 cause of bankruptcy in the U.S.? Because insurance was never designed to eliminate medical debt. It was designed to shift costs onto patients while keeping profits high. Half of Americans now have medical debt. 1 in 5 working adults is paying off a medical bill for years. Even those with insurance struggle to afford life-saving care. Meanwhile, insurance CEOs make millions. The head of United Health Group, Andrew Whitty, made $20.9 million in 2022. The CEO of Cigna, David Cordani, $91 million over 5 years. Every denied claim, more profit for them. The entire system is a scam, and you're the customer there, bleeding. Dry health insurance was never meant to provide affordable care. It was built to extract profit from sickness, suffering, and death. They charge you high premiums. They deny your claims. They leave you with crushing medical debt. And then they blame you for not being able to afford care. And the worst part? They don't just control healthcare. They control the entire pharmaceutical industry, too. The prescription drug scam. Why the same medications cost 10 times more in the US? Imagine you need a life-saving drug. Maybe it's insulin for diabetes. Maybe it's chemotherapy for cancer. Now imagine the price of that drug has been jacked up 1,000% for no reason other than profit. This isn't a hypothetical. It's exactly how the pharmaceutical industry operates. And insurance companies, they allow it. Because the more expensive drugs become, the more powerful the insurance industry gets. How drug prices are manipulated. Legally. Ever wonder why a $10 inhaler costs $300 in the US, but only $10 in Canada? Or why a single dose of insulin that costs $3 to make is sold for $300 in America? Here's how drug companies keep prices sky high. No price regulations. Unlike other countries, the US doesn't regulate drug prices. In Canada and Europe, the government negotiates drug prices to keep them fair. In the US, drug companies charge whatever they want, pay for delay, Big Pharma bribes generic drug makers to keep cheaper alternatives off the market. The result? A drug that should be $10 stays $1,000 for years, so long as the patent is protected. The middleman scam. Pharmacy benefit managers, PBMs. PBMs control which drugs your insurance covers and how much they cost. Instead of negotiating lower prices for patients, they cut secret deals with drug makers to inflate prices so they can take a bigger cut. The FDA loophole. Companies slightly change a drug's formula to extend their patent, keeping competitors out. They tweak one ingredient, claim it's new, and get 20 more years of price control. And insurance companies, they benefit from all of this, because the higher the price of medication, the more power they have to dictate coverage. And patients, they're forced to choose between affording medicine or dying without it. The surprise billing scam. How hospitals trick you into paying more. Even if you have insurance, medical bills aren't straightforward because hospitals and insurers work together to hide real costs, overcharge patients, and add mysterious fees to every bill. How? 1. The manipulated billing code. Scam hospitals use secret codes to inflate costs and overcharge for everything. Example, if you go to the ER for stitches, your bill might include a $3,000 trauma activation fee. Why? Because the hospital coded it as a trauma case. Even if you just needed stitches, insurance pays some of it, but you're still left with a giant surprise bill. 2. The facility fee scam. Ever go to a doctor's office and later receive an outrageous hospital bill? That's because hospitals buy private practices and then charge patients facility fees for visiting what is now technically a hospital. Same doctor, same office, same treatment, but now your bill is 5 times higher, and insurers, they allow it. Because the more expensive healthcare gets, the more control they have over pricing and coverage. Medical debt, the final trap that insurers' patients can never escape by now, we've established. Insurers deny care to maximize profit. They inflate costs through secret deals with hospitals and drug companies. They trap patients with surprise billing and hidden fees. But what happens after they've drained every dollar you have? They push medical debt, because even if you can't afford to pay, they can still make money off you. 1. The medical debt collections industry. If you can't pay your bill, hospitals don't just forgive the debt. They sell it to collection agencies, who then hound you for payment, threaten to ruin your credit, pile on interest and late fees. Many people pay just to stop the harassment. And insurance companies, they partner with these same collection agencies, ensuring that even after you're denied coverage, they still profit from your suffering. 2. The medical credit card scam. For patients who can't afford bills up front, hospitals now offer medical credit cards. These promise 0 interest for the first few months, but the moment you miss a payment, interest rates skyrocket to 25 to 30%. Late fees get added. Patients end up deeper in debt than they started. It's predatory lending, disguised as a helpful option. And banks? They partner with hospitals to offer these cards, knowing most patients will never escape the cycle. The bigger picture, healthcare was never meant to be affordable. If insurers actually covered everything, they'd make less profit. If hospitals charged fair prices, they wouldn't rake in billions. If drug prices were affordable, the insurance industry wouldn't be able to control access to medicine. So instead, they make basic healthcare unaffordable, then sell solutions that keep people trapped in medical debt for life. And the result? Half of Americans now owe medical debt. 1 in 3 avoids the doctor completely, out of fear of the bill. Hundreds of thousands go bankrupt every year because of healthcare costs. Meanwhile, insurance CEOs rake in tens of millions. Hospitals build luxury wings while patients die from lack of care. Pharmaceutical companies charge $500 for drugs that cost $5 to make. Because in the US, healthcare isn't a human right. It's a business model designed to exploit illness and death. The final truth, the system is rigged, and patients always lose. The US healthcare system is not broken. It works exactly as intended, to extract as much money as possible before, during, and after a patient gets sick. And the biggest scam? They make people believe they have no other choice.